Disclaimer: the information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
An amazing event happened on planet Earth in the beautiful city of Beijing, China. The cosmic ray technology was shown for the first time to the public by the financial arm of Keshe Foundation, the American Mark Ray Corporation, which is traded on the US stock exchange. Mr. Keshe himself went to China to show creation of materials from the magnetic fields by using obsolete technology, or what we call rotating gas reactors with electric motors. He's using these old reactors as a starting point for humanity to slowly accept the evolution in science and technology. For 3 days straight, the reactors were run and shown live on Zoom so that anybody from around the world who wanted to could come in and see. Black particles like dust start appearing on the white paper sheets around the reactors. These particles are being created through the reactors and the fields of the universe and the inertia of our planet. They are not coming from the room. There were 4 sets of pairs of reactors with red and green gases spinning in them. We were told they were not CH3 and CuO, but something else. They were set up in a star formation on tables inside the front windows of the Intercontinental Hotel. Anybody passed on the street could see them. White papers and spoons were spread around the reactors to catch the materials being formed from the fields. Some knowledge seekers were able to capture on video when black specks suddenly appeared on the paper, like out of thin air. It was very interesting to witness when energy first appears in the matter state. As time went on and the fields built up and changed strength, the specks formed into bigger pieces and some elongated, and some changed color into gold. This is the first time the public has been able to freely witness the creation of matter from energy. At the end of 3 days, Mr. Keshe collected more particles and showed everyone attending. An interesting thing occurred. When he touched the black dust on the paper with his finger, it turned gold. He said it interacted with the fields of the inertia of the earth through his finger. This phenomenon was written about in ancient times when the Greek god Midas touched things and it was said they turned to gold. What we witness here is how everything in the universe is created, from ourselves to the planets and even cancer.
And welcome each and all to the Keshe American Knowledge Team for November 30th, 2025. And yes, what we just saw in the opening video is a test Mr. Keshe ran in May of this year, 2025, in one of the most prestigious locations in Beijing under the auspices of the authorities that granted permission. That was the first public exhibition in the Intercontinental Hotel in Beijing. And again, I think a lot of ears perked up as this is making maybe those big waves that we've been talking about. But I think he mentioned in the last workshop that even the Pentagon has taken notice that something has changed on this planet. And of course, I think the agreement with China of making 400 tons of gold in 400 separate locations is nothing to sneeze at, or a very good start. Again, creating materials out of energy fields, which we always thought was possible, Newton and others, transmutation of elements and so on. But Mr. Keshe is now demonstrating some of the obsolete technology in the Keshe Foundation. And we've seen this in the gold mining mountains in China as well. But again, slowly, gradually, the technology is coming in. And as it applies to rare earth materials, maybe the Pentagon would be happy to hear this, but they won't be able to use it for war games. Through this technology, even rare earth materials won't be so rare anymore. But again, we're not here to make gold. We're just showing the interaction of fields, and it's more about bringing man into space. So yes, Mr. Keshe is testing, and he's also testing in the workshops. He continues. He's almost one test after another, whether he's in the public or the private. There's always seems to be a sort of test going on, or a little game he likes to play in a way to learn more and observe what's happening. But even in the last workshop and the ones preceding that one, and some of the workshops going forward, as he said, we put you in a seat of transmutation. We're sort of talking to your soul the way the whistle talks to the dog. We can't hear it in our physicality, but yet at the same time, the dog perceives it. And then, of course, there was a lot of good questions and answers, especially about using a telephone the way you use it. This is the same thing you can do with your own communication system, zero-time communication within your own structure. And that question about the dog being able to know when the owner is coming home. The instruction is we all have this ability. It's just been not developed. It's not been played with. It's actually been discouraged, let's say, by our friends and neighbors. That's why, as we were talking before, it's all about what you believe in and what the way you want to understand it. And once you're confident in that, no one, no matter what they say, can actually shake your confidence in yourself. And as he said, some of the things in the teaching maybe we can't do at this point, but some of this knowledge is for you in the future, maybe 10 years, maybe 100 years, maybe 1,000 years in the future, where you remember back and now the soul knows what to do in that position. So not all of this knowledge is readily applicable, but apparently it stays within your structure and you can tap into it when need be. So it's a beautiful, again, opening up of the mystery of the matter state, mystery of the energy to the matter state of the entity. So we never realized we had a different dimension within us. And this is what Mr. Keshe is sort of taking us to the top class first. And once we understand that, if you go backwards, the matter state and other things become a lot easier once we understand this energy dimension. As we know, the energy appears first before the matter state. So we're all working with it. We're all struggling. Mr. Keshe is testing some systems, again, publicly. I think this will be part of the One Nation Network. So we'll cover a little bit of that. He spent quite a bit of time on the Mark Ray Corporation. It seems to be, in a way, spinning its wheels, but there's been some issues. And of course, this is the financial and the licensing arm of the Keshe Foundation. If I'll just pull that up, let's see if we have the Mark Ray Corporation, which we'll put in the chat later. And of course, this has the space code. I think this is one of 27 or 30 companies on the stock market that has, I believe it's the 9661, meaning they're developing space technology and tools for working or bringing man into space. And of course, this is the idea of the Keshe Foundation, that we need to stop the soul's killing in space. So this is the ultimate goal. And of course, we have a peace treaty and many other things, but the fields are also changing on this planet, meaning the DNA is changing, which will produce a different emotion. And this will make a peaceful man out of the man. So we're getting a lot of help, almost like some struggling plants or rice. And you give it a little extra water and a little fertilizer, and all of a sudden, and I'm sure we've all seen this even within our own house plants, where if they don't have water, sometimes they'll just sort of droop over to the side. And then by giving that energy that it needs, that it's extracting, all of a sudden within a period of time, a number of hours, the plant looks alive and healthy again. So this is what's happening with the One Nation Network. And as always, let's anyone want to add anything at this point before we review the World Peace Treaty? Remember, this is a new science in addition to man's science, as we've seen some fallacies in the past. And of course, this is a new ethos that also is being introduced, and then a new language. And I'm hoping it's going to be the language of peace and love and caring and elevation of others and serving others. This is the new language. And even though we'll hear some new words developed, as Dr. Gonto has done in his own language community, added about 40 words so that people can start to understand the plasma technology a little better. But I think this will be a sort of an emotional change, and it'll be, as he said, they have the ability to release fields that everyone just starts falling in love with everyone else. I don't know if that means you'll create new children in the matter state, but you certainly will be more supporting and forgiving and, again, supporting others in whatever they're doing. This is just the way I'm seeing it. Of course, I'd like to remain impartial, as they always say. This is just the way I see it, and the way you see it may be slightly different than the way I see it. And even with the peace, it's the same thing, or with the ethos, or all the rest of it. It's the way it pleases you to understand it, not the way I try and force it on you or tell you how to understand it. As we know, no soul has a corner on knowledge, and I can't be so presumptuous to think that I know more than your soul who came to your own creation. So this is our World Peace Treaty. It is a paper document, but again, we're learning to work with the fields. You can just sign it with the pen of your soul, because once you go out into space, you'll probably never see anything written. So, but on Earth, this is what you can do to create a small peace reactor, or create a small peace dome, perhaps, or even a black hole in a way, and pull in those energies of peace at the same time releasing the beautiful light of peace. So we can look at this many different ways. It's quite a simple document, but there's much more in it, as Mr. Keshe keeps referring to. Many of these workshops and papers and other things will be opened up for centuries in the future, because we, as our knowledge grows, I think what we see in a certain thing changes. And I think we can go deeper and deeper, as Alex has been taking us from the matter state to the nano to the pico, and probably even levels below pico. So this is our World Peace Treaty. You find it on any search engine. Share it with others. And this is the whole work of the Keshe Foundation, is to make a peaceful man out of the man. Although, as he said, we'll still continue to eat or drink water or all those things, but maybe over time it will become more tempered. I know in the future people will frown on this sort of behavior, but that could be a century down the line. Remember, this is a gradual, slow change. And of course, maybe some of the people coming into this solar system, or who have come in, have some new ideas or some new ways of looking at things. As he said, they have morals if they manifest themselves or if they don't, far beyond any morals that the man has ever had. So again, I think they're quite peaceful. They know how to manipulate magnetic fields, and they'll probably help us to understand a little bit more about the universe and the peaceful nature of the universe. Although, as we understand, there are a number of nurseries, and not all those nurseries are creating perfect souls, but it's only a small percentage of the overall process of the creation. But it needs to be curbed in a way and not allowed to spread. And this is part of becoming more peaceful within yourself, within your family, your environment, your city, your town, your nation, and so on, and then across the universe. But if you wait until you get there, it might be very odd when certain entities don't want you to eat them. You don't know what to do other than look for your next meal. So, would anyone like to read the World Peace Treaty? You don't have to be perfectly peaceful to read it. This is just part of our wish. I don't think anyone has arrived yet, although the One Nation Network will help us again get closer to behaving the way the Creator behaves in a way. But it's still up to you to want that sort of behavior. I think you'll have some sort of ability to resist if it's too much for you. But overall, the fields and the souls and the other things will sort of elevate you to that point of understanding, and then you'll apply it. So the World Peace Treaty, very simple. We as citizens of the earth from this moment on accept to lay down all tools of aggression and war. We shall never think about getting involved or incite war, or develop or use any tools of war on this planet or in space. And to this we all agree and swear with our, and you could delete as appropriate, our nation, our territory, our council, our religion, our city, our town, our body, and our souls. Simply put your name and signature. Again, very straightforward. And have it witnessed. I think that witness will be touched as well, that there actually became part of this World Peace Treaty in sort of a different way. And after signing this treaty, be proud to display the certificate wherever you consider being important to you, that everyone can see and know your ethos to fellow men and the mankind and other created beauties of the Creator. And again, do we have to display it, or can we display the World Peace Treaty within our own structure? And other people will sort of notice that or see or feel sort of a different energy, perhaps an energy of peace. But there's many products in the store as well to support this whole idea of becoming more peaceful, as most people think they're pretty peaceful. They're not involved in war or making war toys, but at the same time, I think there's other wars going on this planet as we're taking other or stealing other energies from other entities, which we always thought was correct. But now we know we can move to a higher level or a more enlightened position and sort of dine with the Creator, where the Creator doesn't kill or destroy any of its creation to exist and to thrive in the universe. And we can get to that position. But again, it's a process. And some of the systems, and then the 3I, and of course the solar flares and the rest, are all having a major impact, as Alex said, perhaps subtly or even subclinically, where you don't really notice it in your physicality, but at the same time, things are being put together in the background or in that gap, let's say, between the soul of physicality and the soul of the man. And I think that's where the changes actually take place, between that gap where the emotions are. So share it with others, allow them to realize we can become a peaceful man, and there are systems to help us do this. And in the future, we'll look back at this period probably as a transition. How long that will last, we'll have to see how much of if the man is ready for this change. But it's beautiful that the knowledge seekers are here to share this, to talk about it, and to be, among others, with the same ethos And again, the idea of the foundation is to serve and not to be served. Of course, in that process, you actually get nourished yourself, as I understand it. And others may serve you as well in different ways. Maybe not washing your feet, but in different ways. Okay, where shall we go from here? Anyone? Any thoughts or comments or questions? Okay, Alex will be coming in after we do the World Peace Treaty. Again, we don't need to make this a 4 or 5 hour production, but there is so much to cover. We'll try to cover a little bit of it today. And normally I do like to go to the announcements. It's almost like the quarterback or the manager calling the plays for the team. But again, it's only about 5% of what's going on in the Keshe Foundation that's released to the public or even to the knowledge seekers. So the public is basically in the same position as the knowledge seekers. We don't know much more. Maybe we understand a little bit more of it, but again, so I think this is where the announcements start. And again, Mr. Keshe spent quite a bit of time on a number of different subjects, from Mark Ray to other things. But of course, the Christmas offer is in the store. This store is ready to leapfrog as well. Let's just see if we can find the Keshe Foundation store here. So as we know, we were talking, and this is the reason I had this pulled up. He was talking about a surface cleaner years ago where it would cut down on your dusting, and the furniture and the glass tabletops and other items in your home wouldn't attract dust and dirt as much as they do now. Somebody was talking about solar panels. They always have but that was just something I was looking for. So there are a number of offers. This store is moving. I don't know if the store will stay intact or everything will move, or maybe some of the artisans. He's again mentioning artisans to join the Keshe Foundation and bring your work in collaboration with the plasma technology. And again, this store probably has 150 plasmatic products in there, but it'll grow from the 3 digits to the 4 and 5-digit numbers. So Shopify will be the new location. You have to sign up for it. But all of these are made under the creator of this technology in a way. As Mr. Keshe said, he knows every brick from the bottom to the top and from the top back to the bottom. So there's offers for Christmas. There's Chinese books that just came out, and a number of things, even accessories he was talking about, like these little beads that you can use as in replacement of the sweet cup or the sugar cup. And I think if I say, or no, one was a pressure, I think, and one was a sugar. And you know what I'm referring to as a condition found in the human entity, that this can help balance out without the conventional type of intervention. So the store is beautiful. It will only expand, and Mr. Keshe is asking, here's our One Nation network. Again, they need to get more of these units out. And just asking you to support the Keshe Foundation's work. That's basically it. He said they'd handle everything in the background. Of course, if you are an artisan, you can submit your current product, or if you've done anything with the technology, and see if it fits at this point in time. And just because it doesn't fit now doesn't mean that it won't fit in the future time period. So just because you've not been accepted at the moment, perhaps down the road, because almost every product that we use in our life will have some of the plasma technology in it in the future. So from a comb to a lotion to again, the whole field of cosmetics is wide open. Every field is wide open. And even with if they're creating materials or gold, or carbon 14 out of the energy fields, I'm sure they can create even things like cotton and other materials that would, these reactors, if you know how to play with them, will probably produce cotton fibers or other type of fibers that can be woven to clothing. I know he talked about making some or growing some very pure cotton. And again, I don't know if that was, I think it was for a clothing line. So many, many things and many potentials, and almost everything you can think of can be joined in a way with the plasma technology. I mean, maybe not a weapon, or maybe it is a weapon that'll be turned into a rose, something like this, as we heard in the future. So the store support the Keshe Foundation. This is where really the true work. And again, if you want your product to be carried in this sort of network, you're going to have the Keshe Foundation logo or the certification. You just can't mix some CO2 and something else in a bar of soap and expect it to be accepted. There's probably some more detail in understanding how to use or to play with this mass matter energy state if you're going to be producing things. But I think it'll be proprietary as well. You won't actually be able to share it with others of what you're doing, like the ones that made those beautiful paintings. As Mr. Keshe said, we sent the GANs, we supplied the GANs, and they just painted. They probably told them how and where to apply them as well, and what strength or whatever was needed to do that to accomplish something. So again, you need the Keshe Foundation logo to be actually a certified product, which again, if you're a small manufacturer, as I understand it, the way the network will work, your product will be on, let's say you're in Brazil, your product will be on in Brazil, but also in the American nation, also in the Chinese nation and other nations that would allow it. And your sales should rapidly increase because you're going to get much, much more exposure. And of course, your product will carry the logo as certified by the Keshe Foundation. So let's go to the announcements if we can. Anyone want to say anything or any ideas or anything they're submitting? This seems to be the impetus in the last couple of workshops. And of course, he's made those calls in the past. And even if you're not an artisan, but you're an expert in a field of study, you may want to write to info@keshe.foundation and see if you could pick up the offer of the research centers. There's going to be 500 top scientists. And I think this is, and apparently the locations have already been picked or are being sort of fitted to accommodate a research center. So let's see if we just see that here. This is the wellness. Yeah, okay, we can just go down. But yeah, if you're an expert in your field and maybe you've recently retired or been retired or just want to change positions, you may want to write to the Keshe Foundation and see if you're up to perhaps joining in a much longer term. I'm not seeing that right now, but it is here at some place. I could have passed it. But anyway, these are international research centers at undisclosed locations. I think there's one more that will be coming online. So you can see by these research centers how many new products will be actually added in to the world structure. As I said, from cosmetics to dog food to anything else you can think of, all of these products, for the most part, I think, will be in a way sort of meshed with, if you choose to, with a more advanced technology. And I think this is what Elon Musk was alluding to with the April 1st announcement of something so fantastic. He said it's not the frosting on the cake, it's actually the cherry on the cake. So Mr. Keshe had mentioned the Musk, and we know some of the issues with the Keshe Foundation in the past, but Mr. Keshe has mentioned this a number of times as well in the recent past, about sort of retrofitting an electric car. So perhaps this is what Elon Musk is referring to, one of the biggest announcements ever, and then apparently another 12 to 18 months to manufacture. But again, he picked April 1st, saying maybe I'm just, if nothing happens, then I can say I'm just sort of playing an April Fool's joke on you. Okay. So let's go to the announcements if we can. I think they start here. Any comments, any questions from anyone? Would anyone like to share anything that touched them in the last workshop? Again, this is what I was saying. He's not only testing publicly with materials, he's also testing and touching energies of your soul. Working in a, he said, we're using a dimension of work that's unknown to the man. So I don't pretend to know it or even try to explain it, because I would be bluffing and I have no awareness of what was being used, but apparently they were touching certain energies or emotions within people. And as was said earlier, sometimes it's not always apparent. Energies have to sort of settle in or work into your structure, but I believe they are cumulative and they do build on one another. Almost like the GANs going to work and finding balance as we release GANs waters and sort of creating that bigger condition. I think these fields do that as well, but they probably interlock and then build up to a certain point, almost the way we saw the gold being made. There was nothing there, and all of a sudden we see a manifestation. So this could be the same way with these fields interacting with your structure. In the beginning, you don't see too much, but then later on, maybe you'll see or become enlightened more. Maybe you won't see anything in the physicality, or so on and so forth. But your full dimension of understanding the knowledge increases. That's another aspect to perhaps look for. So let's go to the announcements. These are, I believe it's quite long. I'm not sure. We didn't clip this out yet, but they're quite long, a variety of subjects. But if you're interested in the Keshe Foundation and what they're doing, this is where he sort of lays out the weekly announcements. So that's why I like to cover it. Any thoughts anyone wants to say or add at this point? And again, you might think this is funny or the way it's happening here on this planet, but Mr. Keshe has been doing this for quite a long time, not only on this planet. So they're well seasoned. And again, the plan is just not written by the Keshe Foundation. This plan for humanity has been written centuries ago. This is just partially the fulfillment of it, or the start of a much bigger process that's sort of being opened up slowly, almost the way you open up that little gift that's got the bow and the wrapping and the ribbon, and you kind of delicately take, some people don't, but this is the way we're opening, or the foundation is opening these gifts, rather slowly. And it builds the anticipation as well. What's next? So we're going to go to the announcements. I see someone else has just come in. Let's make a co-host. That's no problem. And we continue on.
Please go ahead.
Thank you very much for being there. As usual, you're busy many fronts, and part of the decision we made some time ago that we do not go, what do you call it, public, but we try to keep the work of the foundation very tight. Then it has allowed us to work very closely, very tightly, but successfully with it in so many ways.
And I thought this was the main idea, was to get this humanity aware of some of the technologies. But he said, we don't go public so much. We keep in everything rather, again, once the big splash or a small wave is made, humanity will be wondering if, especially if they see it on a Musk car, one of these hovering cars, if that's what he was talking about, powered by KF technology, everyone will start to be quite enamored with this. So He doesn't have to run an advertising campaign or go to CERN or appear at the COP conference in Brazil. As he said, they weren't invited there, but they were invited to CERN. But once the technology comes more and more in the public, people will be, again, so inquisitive, I believe, about this and wondering how it works.
As part of the work of the Keshe Foundation, we are looking, some of you have already responded to us, we are looking at it, the possibilities that to bring your work, we are not looking if you're working from home, you make answers. If you structure the company and use Keshe technology as part of what you produce, or you have PICs integrated into other things, to bring you into the part of the full structure of the Keshe Foundation. And gradually, as we are moving in that direction and increasing it, you start seeing a new range of products from different parts of the world on the Keshe Foundation, what we call site. And at the same time, as these organizations become part of the Keshe Foundation, carry the KF logo authorization, which means we have started a full structure of the what we call work across this planet. And you will see gradually this year, or what we call next year, a lot of products will appear in your places, and some of your products you are creator of appear on the website of other people who are again part of the same structure of the KF.
So very nice. If you're starting a business or have been making a product, this would allow you, again, international exposure. And of course, that would, again, everything would need to be scaled up as far as your production. And well, you'd have to see, of course, but this is a beautiful opportunity for someone who doesn't want the regular type of business where everybody's sort of trying to steal from one another. But this is a different kind of ethos where it's not all about the profit and the numbers. It's more about the elevation of humanity through the products that you're producing, as I see it. Anyone else?
We are trying to integrate, and you make 2 or 3 products, and that's not good enough to make a living good enough for you, because that's the purpose you do it. Those of you who become part of the KF logo, what they call band from now on, you carry other people's products. So in a way, you become as much as part of the whole structure. This is important for us as part of what we are doing as introduction of the Keshe coin. You trade with each other, and we guarantee the payments from what we call Keshe Foundation, that what is done through and between our different companies and the structures is guaranteed by us in the way of the line of payments. And gradually we expand this into all our manufacturing. And as I said, the new structure which is setting up and more or less is on the way, we pay wages by cash coin. You can hold it. Your currency in your country drops or gets strengthened. You don't want to lose money. Today was so much and tomorrow less, but you hold to the amount which stays in the international level. You use us for guarantee for your livelihood, for your work, and the trading between different Keshe Foundation and different Keshe Foundation organizations.
So everyone clear on that? Especially if an artisan is struggling or wants to expand his business, you may suggest that. But again, you won't get paid. It sounds like to me, he said they pay wages in Keshe coin, and I think the sort of buying and selling between the knowledge seekers, the Keshe coin will be used as a lubricant for that, in a way, for that transaction without any currencies or currency exchanges happening. This is just my thinking of the way it's working. Anyone else? So it'll all be traded among the coins, the cosmic ray material, and the shares of Mark Ray. And so there'll be no monetary exchanges per se. But as the store grows, I think it'll meet all your needs for energy and for feeding and for the rest. Although you probably still need, we were talking about this earlier, if you made something and you needed to make more of it, and you would have to go to a supplier, your supplier, but I don't know if he would take a cash coin. He'd probably want cash for it. But if that supplier became a knowledge seeker now, and again, this takes time to set up. And of course, as Mr. Keshe said, there will be some abuses. But if your supplier then becomes a knowledge seeker and has some cash coins, you can easily work back and forth. And so this will happen over time as more and more people get on the sort of plasma revolution.
This process already started. We have to build it slowly. As I said last time, the store is getting set up, ready for it, and different part of applications are set up. As I said, we are interested if you're sending a company, set a company, you're building materials, you're making systems, and you're stuck with what is there because that's your scope. Once you become part of the KF in this structure, which has already started, you are structured and you carry more products, more facilities to research, and you become part of the structure of the bigger family. We don't touch what you do. We just give you that opportunity that you carry the possibility, and we give you, if you're doing something unique, room to research and to develop. And you can take things across from each other, with each other, through to the process of what I call commercialization as one structure, payment as one structure, and security in knowing that you don't have to worry about when, and I have a limited income and from what I do. Now, the internet is huge, and no, not everybody goes to the Keshe Foundation website, but you collected, you have worked, you have made a network, and you work with it, you produce some products, but it's not enough for you to become sustainable. You tap into the Keshe Foundation as part of, or you take stock from other Keshe Foundations, and we guarantee the process of the payment through across. You trade inside us with Cashcoin, and we transfer the funds according to Cashcoin to each other, if you chose so. And this is a process we started, and the first companies are just lining and joining in. The ones who are outside China will go through Market Corporation of the United States. The ones who are in China go through our structure, which is set up in China and works that way.
So apparently, sorry, my cat is scratching my chair pillow here. Come on, kitty. But apparently you can either, maybe it'll be an option on certain products that you're offering. Maybe certain suppliers will only accept cash coin, and maybe others will accept cash or cash coin in your currency. I'm not sure how that will work. Any ideas from anyone? But it's being set up slowly. So is anyone making anything that they're submitting at this point? I don't really, I think I know one or two people that might be submitting something as a proposal. But again, I think we can take almost any product, but Mr. Keshe said you need to show that you've worked on it and applied the technology yourself. But we'll hear more and more. I think there's many, many people in the background who are doing things or selling little things. We're not quite aware of all of them, but they will be certified, and the products will be, as I said, overseen by the Keshe Foundation to be done the correct way. Otherwise, they're not going to, anything you make will not be allowed on the website.
We allow both sides to work. So when you become part of the Market Corporation, when you become part of us, when we bring you in as one, you become part of the structure of what we call an international organization. Yeah, we are answerable. Everything has to be correct, and this is a process which we have started a few weeks ago, and now is its first step has already started. We are bringing in the first companies outside and inside separately, China and outside through market cooperation, and signing agreements, and you're becoming part of the process in coming weeks and months. That you become part of. You carry the logo of the Keshe Foundation as what we call market cooperation and structured licensing.
And we'll probably see a lot of artisans in China that make all sorts of things, little small artisans. So we may see a number of products by artisans in China coming out with the plasma technology sort of embedded in there, as we see with this chess set. But it gives a lot of opportunity, especially for young people who want a business, but they're not really excited about entering into the current structure or want a different ethos behind their sort of business. Not just, as I said, numbers and making profit, but the elevation of humanity.
And this will bring you a lot of different opportunities that, as some of you are the resellers of the Keshe Foundation, you know you have, you take the stock from the foundation. Now you get the stock from the whole of the manufacturing of the Keshe Foundation worldwide. Goods manufactured in Qingdao as much as manufactured in Brazil all become part of yours. And we have started to structuring this, and the first groups or companies are there. And we are looking, as I said, not for you to be just if you're a reseller, you just make something to sell, join the reseller. But if you've done research, you set up a company and you actually produce products, we are prepared to take you into the international market. We come in and we monitor, we support, and as we are doing now, we give you the freedom. But at the same time, at the moment, we're taking those who've done some things special and we bring them into our research structure. I'll explain this more as things takes over. And write to us. If you're a reseller, join our reseller structure. But our resellers, as it comes up, as you will see in the next few weeks and months, your portfolio of the products will go sky high, because anyone who becomes part of our Chinese section or becomes part of Markray, your stock, what you make, is available to the others who are selling on their website. Because they're part of the same structure. And this gives you a massive opportunity for you to grow. Plus what the Keshe Foundation will develop as the agents, as the manufacturing and as retailer, you become part of the bigger structure, in a way, bigger turnover and bigger structure to research. If you run the research, you develop the technology and you don't know where to go, which is part of our technology we look at, we are prepared to support you to develop it further as part of the Keshe Foundation, as part of the structure into Markray Corporation of the United States. In China, you go through the Keshe Foundation China, which is set up, and most of the Chinese knowledge seekers know who we are, where we are. And if you set up and structure a company and working in these kind of things, and you develop something, but still selling a little bit here and there, we look at it. If it's viable for us, we bring you in, and we have already started this.
So this is what's been set, and this is how it's going to be delivered. You can make things, but unless you're certified, you certainly won't be able to have your product promoted here on the Keshe Foundation. So keep that in mind. I'm sure there'll still be others selling sort of knockoffs or something like that, but as people become aware that they will only seek out the certified Keshe Foundation logo products. So it's something to keep in mind. But for young people who have developed something, or they're entrepreneurs, or they want to get into international business structure, this is a great opportunity to have an international company sort of launch you in a way.
You become part of the massive structure which starts in 2026. We had some work to set up. And in a way, you like to, you become part of, you have to understand something, as I explained to the knowledge seeker in the past few days. Don't look that I have to give large or equal amount of my company to the, what you call, macro or a Chinese structure. Today I make maybe 500, 1,000, if that's the purpose, because you're working to make a living. In this structure, you make 5,000, 10,000, 20,000. Even though you have 50% partnership with the foundation or 70% partnership, depends on how it's set. So if you're doing this and you want to go step up and you've done a lot of work, but you wanted to commercialize it, we are there. The opportunity has risen there. The situation has been created, and everything will be traded amongst the knowledge seekers as a cash coin. And we accept currencies on the other end. This is what we're going to set up, and what is now gradually internally gives this position. And I was talking to one of the world leading ambassadors last night. He called me very late. And he said, Mehran, what can we do? I want to now become ambassador not only for my country, but for a very large organization, national and international organization with 27 world leaders in it. I said, this is what I want to do. I want to bring he knows what I do. He's very close to the foundation. I said to him, I want to bring the coins in we give support. And I want to meet ambassadors. He says, no, you don't need to meet ambassadors. I'll arrange for you to see the world leaders. That's where the change comes. They make a decision. And out of nowhere, he says, we know you've been working a long time on this. Now it's time for it. And don't talk. I don't arrange you to see the ambassadors where you are, but you meet the world leaders. You explain to them how you give the Keshe Foundation coins, how you give market shares, and then we'll set up a structure through government.
And again, it does sound like an offer that governments can't resist in a way. Maybe these are some of the smaller governments, but we know one of the biggest governments on the planet, China, is pretty much involved pretty deeply, I think, in a way with the Keshe Foundation. But maybe that's only to make some of the other nations envious that they sort of step on board in a way. But no nation will have any exclusivity on this technology, as I understand it, too, especially to use it to abuse anyone else. That will not be allowed. That's not going to happen. This is a peaceful technology, and no one gets to abuse the others because they have a certain knowledge or a technology that the other doesn't have. This is where the nations will become much more equal with one another. Because I can do the same thing you can do, even though I'm just a little tiny nation somewhere. I can do all of the things that you can do. So no one will abuse the others. This is the idea. Of course, as he said, there'll be some with these coins that we'll see abuses, but that will get ironed out over time.
We have started, as I said, a lot of groundwork has been done, and we're just getting to what we call platform on the level. Now it's time to build on it, and we're receiving helps in all sorts of directions. And it's coming in every way possible. But this is part of what we are trying to encourage you to. You worked a lot around the foundation, selling a little bit here and there. If you developed a product for yourself, join us. Outside China, join Market Corporation of the United States as partnership. You can take shares as or equal and increase connection and the whole portfolio. Your 20 items, 30 items become 2, 3, 5,000, which whatever knowledge skills makes across the world and becomes part of us. Carry our logo will become part of you. We are ready, the structure is set. And if you have invested and developed, we like you to be part of the structure of the research, and we develop it with you further. We don't want you to move out of your country. We don't want you to change anything. And as I said to a knowledge seeker earlier on, I don't want you to move from home. I set up a research center in your home. You don't need to move. It's no use us, as I always said, trying to make life better for humanity, but those who make the life better have to move themselves away from their home. And this structure has started, and I think many of the knowledge seekers who supported this to happen in the background and getting shape and taking shape, and now is actually there. Those of you who bought these communication units, we received the first 25 past couple of days. Our team is setting it up in what we call ready to go. They go through the first phase of completion of the first phase, and then we take them to another position for connection direction. And then hopefully before end of this month, the first 25 will arrive at your doorstep.
And again, just to mention that even if you're not an artisan, if you could acquire one of these units, you'll earn 2.4 Keshe coins per year that you can use to shop in the Keshe Foundation store. And in addition, as you play the Enlightenment game, or the game of Enlightenment, which is embedded within this system, you can also, as you progress to different levels of enlightenment, I guess, I haven't seen the game or played it, you can also earn Keshe coins, even to the point of making a living at it, which I find we're going to have to see how that works out. But this was what is being proposed. So even if you're not an artisan, if you can get a hold of one of these, you can earn the Keshe coin that you can use to shop internally in the Keshe Foundation, and so on. Any thoughts or questions? This is the way it's going to get rolled out. I haven't certainly made any world revolutionary products, and I'm certainly not meeting with ambassadors at the very highest level to introduce these Keshe coins and other things to world leaders. So you can see how close Mr. Keshe is. And it's not that the world leaders are unaware of the Keshe Foundation. As he said, they talk about the Keshe Foundation among themselves on a very regular weekly basis. So again, it's just a bit of resistance that needs to be overcome. As we elevate the souls of the leaders, I believe they'll be more accommodating, or conditions, as he said, with the rare earth and other things, or to even feed the nation, will all be offers on the table from the Keshe Foundation. So I don't think any nation will want to move away from this. It seems, again, it's world leaders that have to sort of be enlightened or elevated to accept this position, but they will as these fields start to change on this planet.
Please stay and follow the procedure, because we don't want any problems in connection or whatever. And half of you will receive what you paid, and some of you will receive the donations units, because some of the countries in Africa, in South America, and other part of the world, people cannot afford paying for these units, and we receive the donation. But we want to extend this network across the world.
So again, maybe you just have a big heart. You're not familiar with the technology, but something within you said this is correct. Make a donation to the Keshe Foundation or buy one of these units for donation. I think that's the way. Again, you can provide a blessing in a way to others, and of course that will come back to you as well. This is, again, nothing like this has ever been attempted on this planet. In the beginning, when Mr. Keshe said, "You don't know what I'm building on this planet," this was years and years ago, and I said, "No, I'm not sure what he's building on this planet." But now you can see sort of the first whispers or fields of it sort of coming into existence. But it's up to the knowledge seekers to take this up and, in a way, these units don't belong to you. You're sort of gifting them back to humanity in a way, because these fields and what's will touch it'll cover every inch of this planet as I understand it, and not only on this planet, across the universe. So this is the way the technology is set, and this is the way it'll come out, as I see it. Again, I don't even think these nations will, if a nation enters into for their nationals to be fed by the Keshe Foundation for a certain percentage of GDP, I don't think that government will know how their people are getting fed or understand how it's happening, but the people will report that they are consuming less food. But the government itself will not have the technology in its own hand to turn it on or turn it off. That'll all happen through the Keshe Foundation. Welcome, Ike. Thank you for joining us.
And so from hopefully end of this month, the first 25 will be dispatched, and then into a new year we first do our what we call the physical side. Then somewhere in early next year you start receiving a package which you have to just connect to these units to connect as part of the what we call direct connections into the system, and then we work through this as we said before. We still need.
And just to explain for people who may hear this, the second part is called a cosmic ray antenna. This unit is set up more or less for the physicality in a way, where all the workshops and the books and the papers, and there'll be a network there. The cosmic ray will be the antenna, will be what you'll receive secondly, and you just hook it up. And this brings us into the energy dimension, I believe, as in a type of transmutation or a feeding or a wellness or the rest of this. This is the dimension of the work of the cosmic ray antenna. But don't take it apart. Don't play with it. Don't try and replicate it. I mean, you can try, but just hook it up the way it is and let it go to work. There's nothing you really have to do with these units. Just plug and play and hook up the antenna when it's received. And the foundation is handling the rest in the background.
Massive amount of donations. This is not resolved. This is not finished. We received a very generous donation which allows one part of our research to go where we wanted it, and I thank the soul who supported us heavily. And we have received support from knowledge seekers who are bringing their companies, putting it on the table, says the technology you brought, it has to be shared. We want to be part of it. We are getting those as well. And now it's gradually taking shape, and it allows us for the first time, as I said, through market cooperation to deal through cash coins and cosmic ray bundles and bringing balance that we support, we guarantee, and we deliver.
And probably some people are thinking, well, this network could be hacked into, but it's being set up to be less subject to that sort of attacks, apparently. And it's a decentralized network, but they're all connected to one another. And as Mr. Keshe said, if somebody did try and hack into the system, would they, you're dealing with something unknown to the man, would they get hit, he said, with the fields of peace and balance just by coming in and trying to steal or mess up the foundation? So again, you may be, you think you're going to get something, but you might get something else, some sort of elevation rather than a lower energy that you had intended to. So beware, hackers. You may become elevated in that process.
If there are any questions, let me know and I'll try to answer.
Mr. Keshe, you mentioned Mark Ray quite a bit there, and we have several questions about.
Do we want to hear this on Mark Ray? Anyone? Again, we're just getting a deeper understanding of some of the twists and turns that this company has gone through, but maybe we could just take a look at the overall workshop. I wanted to play the announcements, but again, he probably spends another 20 minutes on Mark Ray and the ins and outs and the twists and turns it's been through, and they're trying to get it sorted. but it's been in the penalty box. It's gotten out of the penalty box, but there's still a few bits of paperwork apparently and other things that I'm not aware of that need to be set right. So I know he handled, I think, the problem with the foreign ownership, that that nation was under sanctions. So the company is automatically on the American exchange. If there's a stockholder in a country that has sanctions on it, that company then gets sort of indented, or in a way, I don't know, handcuffed, or some sort of process happens that it can't reach its potential. Welcome, Elias. I had played the Carpenter song before we started the program. Thank you for introducing that. And what an appropriate song from almost 50 years ago. Who would have known? But maybe they did have some experiences and they sort of wanted to share it through music. So shall we just take a brief overview of the workshop itself? This is one of the other knowledge seekers who shared a few things. And again, there's the first half and the second half. Beautiful. We'll just make sure we're sharing this correctly. And again, as Mr. Keshe said, listen to these teachings a number of times. I think he said this particular one will stay in the queue for centuries. Maybe that was the last workshop. I think it was this one, though. And there's things embedded in these workshops that are doing, again, a work with you that you may not be consciously aware of. As he said, we're using that sort of dog whistle to talk to your soul in a way, or whisper to your soul. And then, of course, this process will get expanded in a much bigger dimension. But we're sort of the guinea pigs in a way, unpaid, of course, and sort of perfecting the system for the team. So we had a beautiful intro with this wisdom of creation is to understand the work of the fields, as I understand it. And then in this section, we'll work directly with the participant's soul, or their central energy. Remember, in the universe, they don't refer to the central energy as the soul. They call it a central energy. And of course, this is what Da Vinci was looking for, or Leonardo. I've been corrected on that. He was actually from the town of Da Vinci, or the area called Da Vinci. So this is what Leonardo was trying to discover: what powers this body of the man. And he went through a number of cadavers. Mr. Keshe just comes along and, of course, explains it's the soul of the man, or that star that was shrunken down to a few microns, and that's our energy center. And all the created beings, whether they have physicality or they don't, have that sort of common denominator from the soul of the creator. I made the man and the whole creation in the image of myself. And again, we just heard a little bit more about activating this universal communication. He's calling it a communication. And some of the things that he did in the workshop, he said people would know what they did on that day, or this past Thursday, around the 20th of December. And I think this is when the 3i is the closest to the planet. So perhaps there'll be some field interactions. I'm not sure. But okay, let's see here. Okay, yes, universal communications. Human beings live in two parallel modes, yes, spiritual and physical, or energy dimension and physical dimension. But we know the physical dimension is just an energy mass. We know that the energy and the matter state are sort of equal in a way. Anyone want to add anything? And here he's saying the human being structure from fields, the transmutation is possible when the soul of physicality, your spirit, merges with the human soul. But to me, it's a matter of putting pressure. I think we were talking about that earlier, or the emotions of the soul of physicality and the physicality will impress upon the soul to try and do something. Again, through your wish. It's almost like having a genie in the bottle. and we all have it. And the soul is more than pleased to sort of meet your wishes, I guess, if they're correct. And again, sometimes wishing for something, you might get what you wish for, but that is not always what you want after you get it. You find out, I was thinking about the Jaguar series of cars and things. They're beautifully appointed and they're very aesthetic, but you have to, they don't physically run right. Someone used to say you need two Jaguars, one at the mechanics and one you drive. So I think this is very similar here. So creation, love, and spiritual growth. This is all what's happening in some of these sessions. Love serves as a mechanism for confirming one's own existence. Yes, apparently the creator has a touch of ADHD, hungry for love, hungry for being acknowledged, let's say. And of course, if he made the man in the image of himself, we probably have a touch of ADHD. That's why they say people sometimes drive these fancy cars. Yeah, they like them, but it's all about, look at me. I need attention. Look what I'm driving, and so on and so forth. So a lot of these have sort of a snob appeal aspect, and people like those sort of things for others to observe them and maybe be a bit envious, but I don't think that's the creator. He just wants to be acknowledged and interacted with. But we're all hungry for that acknowledgement or recognition. And we don't get a lot of it all the time, so we're mainly hungry for it. The participants are to be spiritually activated and prepared for coming transmutation. This is what he said. This is what we just talked about around that December 20th. If you picked up on what happened in this last workshop, you realize around that period what they've done. As he said, we're sort of using this dimension of work which is beyond the knowledge of the man. So I'm not going to try and explain it. But if anyone's here who'd like to explain it, please have a go. Okay. The participants are to be spiritually activated and prepared for the coming transmutation. This is why I think he's speeding up that energy dimension, the toughest class in a way. As he said, we're taking you to the top level at this particular level that we're at, and then we'll work backwards. They should be able to consciously choose between physical and energy reality. And we do it all the time. We're just not paying attention to it. This is my thinking. And again, being indifferent, I want to say whatever I say, it's just the way I see it at my point of understanding right now. But of course, that's all a dynamic process, which continues to expand in a way. As he said, the more we understand the totality, the more we realize we don't know anything. But again, everyone has to sort of work through that. The goal is to open themselves to transmutation, to connection with the Creator, and ultimately to the peace vision of one planet, one nation, one race. And of course, we have a program on Tuesday in the public session in the same public Zoom room as the workshop, and that's what it's called: One Planet, One Nation, One Race. We do have one planet. We don't have one nation, but we certainly have one race of humanity. And again, we're all equal. This is what we haven't understood. And even with the other people on this planet that we never really referred to as people, the vertical and the horizontal people, are also part of this process as well. So that was basically it on the workshop. I thought we'd go to the dog, where I think it was Antonio from Australia was talking about this ability of dogs to sense when their owners are about to arrive, even in a different car. And Mr. Keshe, of course, said we all have this ability. So it's just that we haven't trusted in ourselves enough, or listened to others who said this is a lot of hogwash and so on and so forth. Okay, I've got to step away. Can someone take over for a moment here? Or we'll just allow, I have to get something at the door. I just heard the bell ring. Anyone? Abel? I'll be right back in less than a minute.
So, ladies and gentlemen, let's make sure we understand that the One Nation Network is set up. If you remember what we did back in 2017 when we introduced the power units, these were power enhancement units. So they were not standalone, but they were hooked up to the power within the house, within the grid. And one of the things we did was we created a gradient and a perimeter. And so as the power was coming into the building, that was one side. And then we put another reactor, another MAGRAV unit at the farthest line of the electrical connection so that everything in between was affected plasmatically. And in that regard, we did discuss that we could deliver a conversion to either electrical at 110 or 220 or DC or plasma power. Since at this point in time we don't have many plasma instruments, the electrical appliances, be it a fridge or a tool, could operate, or in Canada, stoves operate at 220 volts. So you would require more energy. And the point of the matter is you didn't have to have a switch where you would choose, as you do in a generator, you draw what you need. And the conversion is specific to that need. So as you patch in, you become part of that requirement. And then, of course, we do also have battery operated devices. And so if we needed to, we could supplement the DC power that way as well. So we did that in public going back to even 2016. So this is not a new concept. It's just a new application. And so now we're doing the same thing in the plasma network, and this is what the One Nation Network is all about. So that's one of the reasons the first 25 are going to be spread around the world so that we do get that peace dome spread around the world.
You're nano coating the whole planet now, Alex?
And precisely, yes. Precisely. We're all diamonds in the rough, Mark.
Yeah, I do like when he said we were all chosen to be perfect. So we're definitely on a progressive path. And we're all growing into it at different speeds and strength. But this was the whole idea of the creation was chosen to be perfect. And somehow it sort of got off the track. But apparently the community is aware of this and there's corrections going on, not only on this planet, but across the universe. And
Perfect. So let me get back on track and I'll see you in a bit.
okay. As I was saying, I wanted to find this part about the dog here. And thank you again for the transcript. Beautifully done and delivered so timely. But again, just to realize that we all have more abilities than we give ourselves credit for or that we even use. But you just have to start, as we heard, trusting in yourself and developing these skills a little more and more. And again, if you ask your friend or your lover, and if they're not in tune with this knowledge, they're going to say, this doesn't make any sense. I don't understand it, and the rest of it. But again, we've been hit by this knowledge seeking virus, and our souls are telling us what we're being taught in a way and exposed to or transferred knowledge to is correct. I know I can feel it. This is the deepest knowledge that I've ever encountered, I think, in my entire existence on this planet. Is the way things are explained and put together, and some of the fallacies with Einstein and other sort of greats that I trusted and believed in, but I had fallen for some misnomer, I guess, of many different ways in many different areas. But of course, that's been the work, and this is the work of the Keshe Foundation, that no one gets abused due to a lack of knowledge. So let's see if we can pick this up, and what I'll do is just go through see if we can find this. I'm going to scroll the transcript down, and we'll go to about 2 hours and 2 minutes. Was one of the questions. Remember, there's a workshop normally for an hour, and then maybe 90 minutes or so of a question and answer period. So let's see if we're at the right spot for this. Yeah, this is where Antonio comes in and talks about a study with dogs, and we know they can hear dog whistles and we can't, and how they can anticipate the owner coming home even if the owner's in a different car. Or I don't know what sort of tests they run. Maybe they had some cameras in the home and the owner was somewhere away, miles away, decided it was time to head home, and all of a sudden the dog senses that. But he said we have the same ability, but we don't acknowledge it in a way. Or if something happens like that, we just say, we don't say, oh, I knew you were coming home. We just say, oh, that was a coincidence. I was just thinking you were coming home. So again, there are no coincidences in the universe.
With Antonio, who also mentions in the Q&A that Wilson Davis and Company deals in Mark-Ray shares at the moment. Antonio, would you like to go ahead, please?
Good morning, Mr. Keshe. Good morning, Rick. Can you hear me okay?
Yep,
Yes.
no problem. No. How is the harvest going? Or have you finished?
No. I'm very busy for the next 3 months, at least 4 months. Yeah, it's a bit of at my age, it gets very exhausting. I just go a bit slower.
I know it happens. You know what you got to do, huh?
I was looking at the Twinity thing for what was that one? You got one for energy or something. So I was looking at that. I might have to get some of that to give me a bit more stamina.
Yeah, it comes with the age.
It was something interesting, Mr. Keshe, in relate the experiments with animals and in particular dogs, where the owner goes away from home, and and when the owner decides to return, the dog knows exactly when he's decided to return. So they did a bit of an experiment, and they even changed vehicles. Instead of the dog, he could hear his owner's car, he would come back in a taxi, or and the dog always seemed to know when the owner had decided to return home. The dog would be ready to greet his.
And they say that too. Sometimes the dog, if you have a guest over or a few guests over, maybe the dog likes 3 of them, but the 4th one has a bit of trouble with. So they do have some abilities. I know, again, whether they can't convey it, obviously, but we can see that just in the sensing of the fields. And of course, we're the best detector we have. Our soul is certainly a scout and observes 360 degrees, but our skin and other emotions that are generated within us are very powerful in sending us messages, but we normally don't pay attention to it, but the dogs do. And we have it. It's just a matter of a development.
Owner. And so it got me thinking, well, you know, the connection with the soul, we must have that as well. But the dogs certainly have proven that this connection of knowing when their
We all
owner.
have it. We all have it. It's
Yeah.
just that how we strengthen it.
That's the word I was looking for earlier. It's all how we strengthen it. So you have to apply that to your own reactors in a way and strengthen this. And again, what I need for strengthening and the way I look at it may be slightly different. That's why we keep saying there's no real formula for this other than an overall understanding which you apply to yourself. And I'm not there. Don't get that I'm telling you like I've been here and this and done all these things. I haven't. I'm still learning all the same.
It comes on everyday basis. We have it, but we've been trained to ignore it or call it all accidentally. We all have it, and we all do it. When for example, I was going to explain this to a knowledge seeker very recently. When I wish something which is the need of the foundation, somehow it appears. I know. Whenever it is, when we are needing something which is there, needs to be done, somehow it gets done, it's done. But when you say about the dogs, children do. A lot of babies who even become toddlers have this sense when daddy comes home or when mom is coming back. They look, they know it's time. They can't talk, they're on their belly, but they know it's the time for it. And they know, they watch the door.
Yeah.
I know that I've had that firsthand. My first son knew exactly what time was 4 o'clock. I don't know how, we couldn't find out how, but my wife used to say, he turns to the door and he doesn't move.
Yeah. Yeah.
He knew it was 4 o'clock. It's time daddy come home. With something is in all of us. It's just that we have to, it has to, we feel something, it's just don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you had this feeling, you know, you want to eat something, says, oh no, I better don't.
So this is the energy dimension of us being chameleons. We're all aware that are in this meeting, but this is just for others who come later, that we're actually operating in two different dimensions, a physical dimension and an energy dimension. And you can operate in those two simultaneously, as I understand it. You can be here on this planet and in the energy dimension beyond the moon. That was demonstrated in Linz in the exhibition center, where we saw the physicality of the man in the unit, but yet he described, and we saw the arm moving of picking up rocks on the moon. So can you be in the physicality and in another place simultaneous? Absolutely. And this is part of exploring the universe that we're going to get into. You can be here on Earth and observe any position across the universe in this magnetic field dimension, or the dimension of the soul, or the dimension of energy. And then if you take it further, you can actually transfer your physicality or create it at that location. But you're in already the most beautiful place in the matter state in the universe, which is planet Earth. Maybe you do want to go and have a different experience somewhere else. So you can be in the beautiful place in the matter state and still explore the entire universe with no UFO and no rocket, and even interact with the citizens of the universe. And maybe this is what's coming December 20th. As he said, these people have a lot to teach us. They have huge power over magnetic fields. It'll look like magic to many, but the knowledge seekers have been aware and of a bit of what's coming. And as he said, we shouldn't be so enamored with these people. They're just a little bit cleverer than us at this point. And of course, by other civilizations in the universe, they're considered the donkeys, as some of the universal community has considered man as a four-wheeler, or kind of in that donkey state. We have never gotten off the ground in a way, other than with the matter state rockets and some planes. So
And you say, let's see what happens. Put something in the back of it says, don't put it in your mouth, don't do this. But what I call man's taste of testing, overcome it. It had to me a few days ago. Something in my head said, don't touch this. But I wanted to touch, yes, I want to see what it does. But in my back of my head, it was something like putting my hand back. And it turned out to be something wrong. We all have it, it's just have to rely on it.
Yeah, it was interesting that you couldn't trick the animal to, to recognise, say, the vehicle, or changing the vehicles or whatever. The animal, as soon as the owner decided to come home, the dog was ready. He would be at the door.
We are doing the same.
Mm.
We are humans the same, but we ignore it.
Yeah.
I've seen it many, many times.
Yeah. That's all I wanted to share today.
Thank you.
And again, it's for you to trust and believe in yourself. I can't do that for you. I'm still working on myself to trust myself and to work with this in a way. I thought we'll continue right into the next question, because as Mr. Keshe said, he's the Mekti of himself. Other people are aware, apparently they've been tricked, or it's in the holy books that the Messiah is due to appear, but he tries to clarify it here that he's the Messiah of, and just the way you are, you're the Messiah for yourself, and really no one else. So, and he's also said that, the knowledge is in a way the Mekti, as I understand it, or the promised one, is not a physical man. It's an actual knowledge that enlightens. And of course, this is the knowledge of creation. So why don't we just continue this, because we may hear more of this idea of Mekti, and he's clarified it many, many times. But again, Mekti for himself, just the way you are.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a matter of trust, what we trust in ourselves, than anything else. Any other question? Or shall we call it a day?
Well, I'd like to ask a question from Paulo here, because he's brought it over at least once, maybe twice from before. We didn't have time. It's about, he would like to ask about the truths contained in the Dead Sea Scrolls, whether they deserve your and consequently our attention. He's got 3 questions that are part of that.
Don't look at these things. I'm the wrong person to ask these questions from.
Okay, so like the first question might be, at a certain time, God will build a temple. It will be built under God's leadership, not man's. Has this temple already been built? Is that kind of thing you'd rather?
Ask the writer if he knows. I don't know who wrote it.
Okay.
This is something which I get a lot of questions like this from people. What do you think is? Go and ask the writer.
Well, what about this, the third one, which he says, the manuscripts say that 2 messiahs and 1 prophet will arise. One will arise from the royal line, and the other will be a priestly messiah arising from among common people. Are you a common person? Are you from royal lineage, such as the Achaeans?
Read the sentence from the beginning.
The manuscripts say that 2 messiahs and 1 prophet will arise.
Just wait. We are not a messiah and we are not a prophet. So it doesn't apply to me. Go to the next one.
Okay.
There is in the, if you
What would you say that you are then? A teacher? You did say you are the Messiah.
We are teachers because we are Messiah of our own souls. Yeah, we always say every one of us is a Messiah of our own soul.
Yeah, you're.
And as we heard in the creation of the Universal Council, to those who have become messiahs who can give from their souls, which leads to elevate, then you're worthy to be part of the universal community.
Very quick to qualify that.
Yeah, very. We are the one. Now we know our position. We are responsible for it. We create our own suffering because we are aware of it. I always say, it's something I always do, even down with my children. Never humiliate. Who are you to humiliate? But we don't need to accept the pain. It's us who creates our condition. And so we are the Messiah of ourselves. Yes, I am a Messiah, but for myself. One of our knowledge seekers went through roasting because of this with the Iranian government. They called him in and they said, he says he's a Mahdi, he's a Messiah. He said, no, he says he's a Mahdi of his own. Very hot because the Iranians are waiting for the Messiah, but they can't find it. And I know exactly what it is. One of our knowledge seekers with Vatican had the same kind of problems. They're looking, or they think they know, time is there for it, but I'm the wrong shadow. You have to look for the daughter of Mitra.
And speaking about the daughter of Mitra, there'll be a birthday party on December 6th at 2 p.m. or 1400 CET, 2 p.m. in the West time, and that would bring me to about 8 a.m. or 6 hours behind. But next Saturday, December 6th, you're invited in the public Zoom room where the Knowledge Seekers Workshop happens. Rick Crammon will be hosting. Maybe Mr. Keshe will even stop in. So that'll be Saturday. You're all invited to celebrate the new soul that's been created. Again, this is a different sort of understanding in a way about this new soul created purely out of energies in a way, interaction, and then having the knowledge of the universe. And that child is here with us. But again, are we looking for a physical child, or is this the sort of knowledge as we made the mistake with the Mekti? Now will we make the mistake with the daughter of Mitra? But this is, you're all invited to attend. You don't have to be a knowledge seeker. It's in the public Zoom room, and most likely Mr. Keshe may drop in. We'll see.
In time to come. And even that, she's not a prophet. She's just what you call the light in the darkness for the man to find his path. But if you read this two to come and then the prophet, this is in Quran. They are waiting for two. One to come to announce the coming of the second, and then if you look at the Baha'i faith, they say, oh, the first one came was Bob, and then they said the second one was Baha'u'llah, and they tune into the Islamic pattern. And then you have the same in Christianity in a different way, and they say one written years ago, they heard, they copied, and it come out different situations and verses. Don't believe none of the holy books in the way they are written. The way the Bible is written is the copy of collection of what we call Mitraism. tuned and accepted because they built a church in the houses and everybody believed it. Now it's become the norm. Never accept what's it with the way they explain Mecca, Medina, and the rest of it. Jews have rewritten too many books to benefit themselves. And so, Jews read the Sadicon two prophet, two people, and then the prophet go look into Quran. Exactly the same. And then to justify the look at the Baha'i faith and see what is they call the first one Bab and the next one Baha'u'llah, 19 years difference. This is what Quran says, so we are there. Go back into Judaism and see what they're looking for in 2025. The Messiah is Netanyahu. Use your own wisdom.
Okay, that covers that. We're about to hand the baton over to Alex, but before we do that, I think we're going to sort of move into this dome of peace. Oh, I have to move this over. Okay, that's why. Okay, so let's, before we hand the talking stick over to Alex, let's just go through our dome of peace. And again, something you can help to create and to be part of and to continue this process until we reach a permanent peaceful position. So you'll have work to do. This is not a day job or it's going to happen this week, but this is a continuing process till we, as long as you're here, or even if you're not here, perhaps you can still participate in this process because you know what the need is. So let's go to the first step of the Dome of Peace, which is releasing Gans waters. Again, very simple to do. It has its own intelligence. It seeks balance. It knows where to go and what to do, and something for our physicality to do. And you can not only release it on Sunday, you can release it at any time. It has an intelligence and a pattern of work, and it's all connected, as we understand, to the coins, to the cosmic ray, to the shares of Mark Ray, all of the work of the Keshe Foundation. So this is the first step for our physicality to create this dome of peace. Remember, this is exactly what Mr. Keshe is creating with the One Nation Network, a mesh system where every inch of this planet will be covered and energies will be forthcoming from these systems to bring that balance in, or the elevation of the soul, or central energies, if you want to call it that way. So here we go with the first step of the Dome of Peace.
I don't know if anyone want to read this Dome of Peace. Anyone want to offer?
I will
with a nice
read it
voice.
for you.
Okay.
This is what came in and what is now become a pattern. This from a guy, I don't know him, but he says, please remember this Sunday and every Sunday from now on, till we raise the soul of this planet to a peaceful planet. Keshe Foundation knowledge seekers worldwide will spread the gas waters around the world at 12 p.m. Central European Time and or 18 p.m. Central European Time every Sunday at the same time as they choose which time to suit them. Thank you for participating in this greatest movement by the soul of the man to bring about the peace on this planet as the permanent feature of the life of this planet.
Again, very simple process of making the GANs. You can go on the Keshe Foundation wiki and learn how to do that, or consult with another knowledge seeker, creating a field of different elements. And there is a process of connecting some plates and nano coating and some salt in the rest. And these fields create a nanostructure of themselves, which appears as a solid in the matter state, and then we're taking the water above the actual GANs that's created, probably just the top third of the water in your container, and releasing that. You may want to add a little bit of GANs to it, and it doesn't matter which GANs you use, and we can make a GANs out of anything, as I understand it. Some of the simpler ones have been put forth, the four basic ones that we've been playing with. But as Mr. Keshe says, he plays with hundreds of different GANSs in his work. So that's the first step of creating the dome of peace, something for your physicality to do. And all you do is just put good intentions of peace and love, release it whatever way you want, whether it's in a fountain, a river, a stream, the ocean, in your yard, in your car as a windshield washer, and so on and so forth. It knows what to do. It knows where to go. But you just put your good intentions in there, and it brings balance. And this is part of the way the Chinese have been doing this for more than a decade, I believe. And this is part of a structure of actually elevating a planet, even though we didn't realize this in the beginning. So that's the first step of the Dome of Peace. The second step of the Dome of Peace is using the collective powers of the soul. And of course, you can join the Portuguese team on Wednesday and every day, different times, of course. On Wednesday, it's at 6 p.m. This is a daily intention. And on the CET session, it's at 1 a.m. Central European time. So correct your timing and join a physical meeting, which you can participate in on Telegram or YouTube. And you can add comments or voice things or just be on there in the silent line of communication. So this is on Wednesday at 6 p.m., but every other day, it's at 1 a.m. And these meetings are very brief, usually about 30 or 40 minutes, perhaps, depending on how much discussion. And of course, you're invited on this energy dimension every day at 9 p.m. Central European time or Central European summertime to give to souls in need, which we call the world leaders or the spokesmen for the leaders who are operating things behind the curtain. And this is part of the process of learning to use your energy dimension. We're not approaching this with the physicality. We're approaching this in the energy dimension. You create, as a reactor, energies or emotions that you can give to the soul of the world leaders. And if that soul picks it up, which again, that's not your responsibility to force it, just to learn how to give. And if the soul picks it up and decides to change a dimension within the dimension of physicality, all well and good. Then you're worthy to be part of the universal community. But again, we're just asked to give and to be part of this whole process. And the reason we're doing it collectively is because we're stronger in the matter state collectively, but we're also stronger for sure in the energy dimension. So you're all invited, and the beauty of this process, whether you spend a nanosecond or a minute or whatever you'd like, is that no one fails this test. So join the Brazilian team. You can add to the chat. You can have a discussion there and be with others of the similar ethos as you to bring the elevation of the planet to a permanent peaceful condition. Thank you, Stefania. Now we'll hear from Shweta.
Anybody wants to read the Dome of Peace? I mean, Beautiful Souls. Here? Okay. I'll read this beautiful presentation of Dome of Peace. And the Dome of Peace is already here. All the knowledge seekers, truth seekers, lovers of humanity has built it in a way, spreading the guns, loving each other as shareholders. So I will read this as please remember every Sunday from now on until we raise the soul of this planet to a peaceful planet, Keshe Foundation knowledge seekers worldwide will spread the Gans waters around the world at 12 p.m. CET and or at 18 p.m. CET every Sunday at the same time, as they choose which time to suit them. Thank you for the participation in this greatest movement by the soul of man to bring about the peace on this planet as a permanent feature of the life of this planet. Mr. Keshe suggests we add the next step to create the dome of peace with power of the souls, as we have already going through this with the 2 eyes. And we ask you to spread the Gans waters each Sunday. Now we give you a new path. Now try to unite each other's souls. Try to elevate the soul of humanity through your own soul to a level that no one can touch, the embodiment of the human race. So beautiful. Choose a time where all of you come together on the soul level in a state of inner calmness. At that time, don't spread the water of Gans, but spread your soul. Unite, and in time, we will make a new race out of the soul of man. And then, instead of doing it once a week, do it all the time. M.T. Keshe.
Thank you again, Shweta, for your reading of this. But it's, again, a very simple process. Nobody fails the test. You can spend a nanosecond and pulse your world leader or other world leaders or anything you'd like. And again, I think there's a multi-prong approach here. We're also learning about working in our energy dimension or the universal condition, which again, we think we're powerless operating in that dimension, but this is probably where we're the most effective and the most powerful, if you want to put it that way, or humble, I guess, to serve the others. And this is what the process will be when you go into that universal condition. Whether you're still here on Earth when you do that, or whether you've departed Earth and now you're in that universal condition, you'll have to be giving and receiving fields. But if it's all vague to you, then you'll have a lot to learn, as we said earlier, about operation in the universal dimension. So thank you all. We're not going to take any time. I think it's time to actually pass the talking stick over to Alex, and we want to welcome him for his continued. And apparently there'll be a new series of teaching starting today. Alex, is that correct?
Yes, it is. And thank you very much for bringing us here. So let's see if we can get this thing working.
You're in charge, and I'm going to move into the background. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Disclaimer: the information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of Gans processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
And thank you, everybody. Welcome to the Keshe American Knowledge Team meeting of 2025. We are continuing on this series to deliver the plasma science in bite-sized pieces. And thank you all for being part of the journey. So I hope you enjoy the trip. As Mark has mentioned, we are going to start on a new session here. This is the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute Teachings on Plasma Science. We are advancing into the advanced GANS tech. Subject today is sunflowers, and my name is Alexander. I am from Canada. It is November the 30th, believe it or not, of 2025. This is part of the Keshe Foundation North America Plasma Education Series. So welcome everybody. As you know, that we were just completing the intermediate GANS Tech series, and we ended up talking about the GANS of the GANSes. And today we're going to go into the advanced GANS Tech and discuss many other things. As we've seen, we have been trying to condense this over the years, and it has been, well, it has been a challenge because the knowledge just keeps on coming. But this is the knowledge of the universe, and we have denied ourselves the access to that. And so this is an excellent forum to learn about that. But I must emphasize that despite the fact that we are all students of this science, we all also become teachers, and we need to be able to teach in our own way. So please take from this in the manner that you can do, because we are now in the beyond Beijing era of May the 10th of 2025. The 2025 gold rush has begun, and it will continue. So many of you may be getting the gold fever, but let's understand that what we are doing is seeking the practical application of the books of Marin Tavakoli Keshe, such as book number 1, The Universal Order of Creation of Matter. And let's make sure that we understand that that is coming together of 3 energy fields that we call matter, dark matter, and antimatter. And that is the terminology that is used by the conventional science. But the thing is that we also have book number 2, The Structure of the Light, which means we come from this universal creation of matter in one point, and we have another universal creation of matter in another point. And so there is a go between. And so that there's a coming and going. And as we've said many times, it's a two-way street. So when we get to book number 3, we see this one-way street of the origin of the universe that comes from a central point, a dimension point that breaks up into 2, what we call man's universe and the sister universe. And of course, our focal point is man's universe, and that point on man's universe is our Earth space, which is another tiny point. So we are looking at a point on a point on a point as part of the origin of the universe. And why do we keep continuing to gravitate, shall we say, to these tiny schemes when we understand that one of the ways to diminish what we're doing is through fragmentation? But for 406 weeks, Rick Crammond and the members of the Universal Council have been trying to bring together the one planet, one nation, one race for justice and world peace. And that is from the humanity point of view. And that is not the only point of view. There is another point of view where we have experienced what we call angular density. We see that with satellites, how they fall out of the sky. And we understand that every time they rotate around the planet, they are falling through weakness and they're increasing density. So that density is what they're experiencing, and in that process, increasing pressure. So we interpret that as increased gravity, but in reality, it's an increased dependence on Earth space feeding. And so we get this internal pressure of these different GANS fields, because that is where the angular momentum is actually conserved. So there always has to be a balance. And so when we look at this balance, and how does it relate to the plasma rule? So we have been looking at it as where the higher strength eats the weaker strength, but in reality, according to the plasma rule, the higher strength feeds the weaker strength. So you can pick whichever way you want to interpret that rule, and God help you with your success rate, because when these two fields come together, that's what we call the transaction zone. But we have possibilities. One, it could be a conflict point, but it could also be a binding zone. But there are other options. The most important, from our perspective, is that it manifests, and that manifestation is based on density. And so this density manifestation is the product of two fields coming together, and the product field is the inertia. And so you look at the combination of the plasma rule and how the higher strength feeds the weaker strength. And this is the skill set that we have to determine which is the higher and which is the weaker. And what do we mean by that? The product is the inertia density manifestation. And so what are we trying to complete? Well, we don't seem to be in control of that. And we are, shall we say, kind of lost. So we need commandments. So we've been given commandments, and the first one is, I am the Lord your God. And in a way, we have interpreted that as two words that are synonyms. But of course, when we look at the overall picture and we include the completion of the missing commandments, we find that it paints a different picture. The one that I keep harping on is number 11, thou shalt not lie. And the reason for that is because poker is a great game, and we really like to play that on this planet. And sometimes we get very excited when the stakes are very high, right? But it really doesn't matter. And this is true if you've ever been a coach in the minor leagues. You find that the intensity of the players is just as much as that of the professional players. So the level of the game, whether it's a two-bit ante or whether it's $1 million on the table, really doesn't matter. What matters is that you have to be a skillful liar, and so the success comes to you. But it's not guaranteed because there's always this element of chance, and so you have to pick your spots, and then you place your bets. But when you get into outer space, that doesn't follow, and it's confounding to understand why are we depending on this energy binding means. Of course, it's self-serving because that's our dimension point. And we have to understand that that is the product of three fields. And those fields are me, myself, and I. But with this energy binding, we've chosen in most cases to do this at the expense of others who also have this binding need of me, myself, and I. And so it doesn't allow for me, myself, and whatever else you can steal from me, and I will compensate for it. Or, if it's really painful to me, I may even retaliate. And so you have what's a binding point becomes a conflict point. And this is how we structure our life because we see the success. And what do we want with our success? Well, we want vitality because what we have grown up with is a prospect of becoming old and decrepit. And as we've done that, we've realized that those two words do not belong in the same sentence. It's only we apply that because it's kind of, accepted. But in reality, this is in stark comparison to young and decrepit. And so it isn't age related, it is vitality related. So we have adults who are leaking their vitality, and that vitality is actually the loosh. The loosh is the energy of the vitality. And we see that as basically only in an emotional and a physical context, and that's all we attribute it to. But because we're discussing the advanced GANs tech, we have to understand that the GANs is at the root of this emotional and physical transformation. And so what we're seeking is a vitality enhancement, and that's what the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute is delivering. So it's time to gas up. Also, in terms of our knowledge, we now have to see that there are other factors at play that maybe we don't understand or don't want to understand. And it's partly not only because we may not have the proper education, but we may not have the proper education. So it all depends on what you want to study, what you give your time and attention to. So, you know, if you're looking at the reruns of the I Love Lucy show, well, enjoy yourself. But if you're wanting to understand the purpose of life, then you have to start to connect the dots. These are the practical points. And what we're trying to deliver is the practical reasoning. So the road to self-determination, or the road from self-determination, involves a practical philosophy encapsulating practical solutions. And so when we look at the practical currency of life, and we see that this involves mitochondria, which are part of the plants, it's also part of the cells, and the plants, the vertical people, and we as the horizontal people have mitochondria. And these give us the energy that allows us to function. And this is the currency of the creator. So we need to really delve into that in this series. And so when we're talking about sunflowers, we have to understand that there are overlapping fields. When we look at the sunflower, wait a second, this doesn't look anything like a sunflower. This just kind of looks like three different fields, and they're overlapping. And so that is the difference between the physicality and the animate world. Because in the physicality, more than three in a chain are a polymer. But in the animate world, more than three in a chain fold over into a protein. And so each part, each field has a gravitational magnetical relationship. So there's the inner circle, then the next field, and then the outer field. And each one has its own magnetical gravitational relationship. And so you thought this was a sunflower. No, this is how the fields interact. This is a sunflower, right? And so you see the different fields and how they're overlapping. And yes, there's a stem, but let's forget that stem for now, because that just complicates things. Let's just deal with the flower itself. And so when you look at the singularity of each field, you have to understand that there's a duality of the maggrav of the inertia field. So in other words, all of these fields coming together create a formation that we see as a sunflower. Well, how do you account for the difference of all these fields? Isn't that the question? And is that only applicable to sunflowers, or what about water hyacinths? I mean, look at this freak show. You have these beautiful round green leaves, and they are one field that is balanced by its magnetical gravitational relationship. And then you have this starburst of flowers, and they themselves are coming in three, and they have a gravitational magnetical relationship. And then, of course, the rest of the plant is the roots, because this floats above the water. The roots are below the water, and they themselves have a gravitational magnetical relationship. So here you have the whole structure of the plant demonstrating the overlapping fields. And then, of course, our favorite is our daisy. And the reason the daisy was favored was because not only do we have different fields, let's say we have the gravitational magnetical field of the core, but the gravitational magnetical field of the white petals, but then we also have the gravitational magnetical field of the seeds. But what is unique here is that the core gravitational field has a spiral pattern in a hexagonal format, and somehow it stops. And so we can delineate that by the difference between the yellow portion and the white portion. But the white portion has petals, and they don't look anything like a hexagonal format. We discussed this before. So the point of the matter is the complete flower has different overlapping fields that constitute that flower, but clearly they are in a different shape. So this is the subject that we have to look at today, because we're talking about the GANS tech, and this is the advancement of the nanocoating process of the monatomic science. So we have made the cups of life, and we call them the cups of life and not the cups of the pandemic, because we're not worried about the harmful effects. We are concerned with what we're creating, and we can create whatever we want to create. So in this case, we created an emotional cup and we created a physical cup. And in addition, we were able to create other ganses, carbon dioxide, calcium, zinc, and copper GANs, for instance, and also amino acid and water. And isn't it interesting that water and oil don't mix? And so we were able to create two ganses that were separate in that regard. And of course, we are now experiencing the gold rush because we have the gold in ganses as well. And then, of course, when we go to the cup of the universe, which is an extension of the same format, we see that there are two hemispheres in the brain, and they relate to the copper GANs, which is the physical, and the zinc GANs, which is emotional, and then the carbogen, which is the connection to the universe. And when these three come together, we create the cup of the universe. But the cup of the universe is connected to the physicality. So we have one, and we have one, and we have another one. They come together with these three fields, just as we did in the universal order of creation of matter. And plus, we have the physicality, and we don't lose anything. This is a continual process. So this is what we're talking about when we talk about the transmutation highway. When we're looking at the carbon 12, the lowest level there, that is our transmission highway. That's our physicality. When we go to the carbon 14, which is an isotope, that is our transition highway, which allows us to elevate or to decay. And then, of course, there's a transmutation highway, the carbon 16 being the gateway to that particular highway. So we understand these cup relationships. So each and every cup relationship has a magnetical gravitational relationship. And then from that comes your soul radiance. So whether it's the cup of the emotion or the cup of the physicality or the cup of the soul, you have these three relationships. But in order for any manifestation to occur, you need an environment to do that. And of course, we have our earth space. And so that earth cup also has a magnetical gravitational relationship, and ergo a soul radiance. And so the interaction of that soul radiance with the interaction with the cup relationships creates your cup of inertia. And that manifests a soul radiance as well. And so there are your basic 5 cups. And so we have elevated ourselves to the next position where we are making the Gans of the Gans, which is to say, if we take the cup of emotion and add another cup of emotion to that, we can create another Gans field. And that becomes the new transaction zone. So in order to understand the energy transfer, we have to understand that ray motion is creation. And we have a choice based on the plasma rule, either to do a natural creation or to do a natural decay. So if we look at the balance between the creation and the decay, then we have a field. We have to understand that there's a counteracting counterweight, a natural decay and a natural creation. And then between those two is another transaction zone, which is a boundary, but it is also a bonding zone. And if we don't understand it, then, we kind of slough it off or round it off, and we fudge the whole thing. But in the plasma science, we need to be a little bit more precise, because energy always is positive, but energy is always in motion. So the direction of that motion is based on the charge. So the emission out of that field is magnetical and the absorption is gravitational. So this we refer to as the polar energy, and the strength of that is determined by the speed and the rotation and the field strength, and of course the direction of flow. And the direction of flow is either magnetical or gravitational. But since it's a two-way street, then we have to look at the net difference. So one street has a certain field strength, another street has a certain field strength, but in the opposite direction. But these two field strengths are not the same. So the difference between these two is the gradient, and it becomes an inertia field, and that is the product. And so that determines on what we are, what we have, and where are we going. So when we look at GANS and how it flows in water, we can see that we know that water can exchange energy. So water can give and take energy. So we can take the energy from the GANS and we can drink that water, and that water will give us energy. GANS does the same thing, gives and takes energy. So if we understand that GANS is exchanging continually magnetical energy and gravitational energy, and that's how the GANS can flow within the water. And we are bags of GANS. And when they do an analysis of humanity, they say we have more than 75% content as water. So we can see the affinity between the water and the GANS. And then, of course, we can see how the GANS affects the earth matter. And we have to ask ourselves, well, is that a transaction in singularity or in duality? So we cannot have an inertia density manifestation without two fields facilitating that manifestation. And so that's how we get all the various ganses of the earth ganses. In fact, we can achieve ganses of every single element in the periodic table of elements, because when they come together, they are all products, and they are all product of what we call a nuclear feeding inertia. So each and every one is a fragment of the complexity. What is the complexity? Well, it's the Earth's space, and that has a gravitational stability. But these fragments also have a gravitational stability. So each of them is portable in their dimension, whatever that dimension may be. And that dimension would be a fragment, and all the fragments together manifest the whole. And so there's a relationship, and each of these fragments are a dimension point. So now we have an interaction of these various dimension points, and this is why we have so many range details in our Earth space. So the most important one for our animation is carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen, and hydrogen, and that is one group. But we also have the silicon, the phosphorus, the sulfur, and the chlorine, which are part of another group. And then, of course, we have the copper and the zinc representing our physicality and our emotional strength, and the iron, which represents our inner strength of blood. And then, of course, we have this gold fever. And of course, what is the medium? Well, it's always related to either sodium, magnesium, potassium, or calcium. And these are all fundamental to our facilitation of the various dimension points. So when we look at the Peace Dome reactor, and what we demonstrated in Beijing was that we were able to create a shielding. That is one dimension point between two plasma fields. And we had a start positioning. That's another dimension point. And then we manifest a possession. Well, that's another dimension point. So we were able to create 3 different dimension points, and they all work together. And so this is the point that we're trying to drive together today, is that when we look at the arrival of humanity matter, then we have a singularity of each field, but we have a duality of the magrav of the inertia field. And then each of these, whether it's matter, dark matter, or antimatter, goes through this conversion. And that conversion will either give us the inorganic earth space or the organic human space. And so we have not the falling, but we have the arrival of the humanity matter. So this arrival is coming from this feeding of the inertia Gans matter. So each one is a singular, and they coming together in duality of the magrav of the inertia field. And so our destination was an Earth space. So the Earth space was a manifestation, the human space was a manifestation, and the interaction of the two represent both an inertia density manifestation, and the location of that manifestation is determined by the field strength and by the nearness and proximity to other fields and their strengths. So this is the rule by which principal matter works. The PM ticks are magnetical because they are always emissive. They are part of the energy packs that are diverging all throughout the universe, but they are converging in their force fields and being diluted into the principal matter, the transition matter, and the convergence matter. So these are all part of the plasma matter. But when they interact with the Earth and its plasma matter, we call that field interaction inertia, and we create a product that is the gravitational magrav of our existence. And that is the fundamental coming together. So we have to understand that there are 2 pathways. There's the magrav created to the gravitational intensity of attraction, we call feedback, and the magnetical outintensity of repulsion, which we call feeding. And in scientific terms and nuclear science, we refer to one as the electron, as the giver, and the neutron, of course, as the taker. And of course, you can see the difference between these two. And then the other problem, of course, is that we are so physical, we depend on what we can touch and what we can see, and that is our gravitational stability. But we are enjoying things that we cannot touch or cannot see. They're more emotional, or they're feelings. We call them feelings. They're magnetical, but they're still part of the matter plasma dimension. And that's how we relate to everything. And these are all part of the feedback. And we are feedback dominant. What are we feedbacking to? Well, that is an important question, because we talk about the counterweights and how we measure them. So in physical state, the gravitational counterweight is weight, and the atomic state is mass. The counterweight is magnetical. In the nuclear state, we measure it in Teslas, and in the plasma state, we measure that by time. So right there and then, we have a conflict in our understanding, because we are measuring the distance of the various stars in our universe by time. And that measurement is in a physical state. That's where the anomaly is sitting. So we have to understand that there are conservations at work here. So our plasma matter dilemma is that we understand the atomic state, the nanostate, and the GAN state, and that's what we're talking about today, is the advanced GANS tech. But the substructure is the plasma state. And this plasma state is still part of the matter state, because you cannot have the physical matter state without the substructure of the plasma state. So by the nearness and proximity to the physical matter state, this plasma state is part of the matter state. And it's always balanced. So each motion through each energy state is a MAGRAV energy transfer state. And the steepness of the gradient is determined by the path length and susceptibility. So a plasma state can affect a GAN state, but a plasma state can also affect an atomic state. So there's no rule that says you have to go from one state to another, just like there's no rule that says that you have to go up the stairs one step at a time. Well, what we find is that we have this reference to singularity, but when we look at hydrogen, which is fundamental, it has a dependency on another hydrogen. And hydrogen is not just hydrogen, but it has a covalent bond, but it also has a split personality, and one is orthohydrogen and one is parahydrogen. And it has to do with polarity, whether you have the two poles that are similar or whether you have the two poles that are opposite. And so why isn't the GANS of the GANS the same? Well, of course it is. So we have the cup of emotion, and we create a transaction zone of GANS. And we have the cups of physicality, and we have a transaction zone of GANS. And so what do we create? Well, we are looking at the concept of duality. That is where we have 2 points working in tandem as a partnership. We call it the twinity. So where you have the transaction zone of one, which is highly gravitational, and the transaction of a zone, which is highly gravitational, and then you have the connection between the two, that being the transaction zone. So when you're looking at the concept of creation and decay, and the counterweight of the decay and the creation, then you find that the concept of duality of one versus the concept of duality of the other also works as a twinity. And there you have a transaction zone. So this is where we go back to the original teaching. In its simplicity, we say when two forces come together, you have the susceptibility and singularity that allows them to come together. And so you have the basic coming together of the two dimensions. And then eventually that matures into, through duality, a star formation. So where you have the physically rotating Gans balls, and you create these plasma fields, and then these plasma fields create their own transaction zone, and then you have a dynamic plasma that is created from that. And so depending on the field strength of each one, it affects the strength. So we were talking about basic nanotech, and then we see that there's a star formation that the nanotech created, and within it we created the picotech. But then when we introduced the concept of the twinity, then we could say, well, there's a twinity of the nanotech, must be the twinity of the Gans tech as well. So this is a fascinating discussion. So when we look at these multiple turning points, we call them, because they're multiple transaction zones, and they always are variable, determining on path length and susceptibility. And so in order to maintain this polyatomic inertia gradient, the relationship between all of these transaction zones also have to have this magnetical gravitational relationship. And so when we focus in on the center one, and we say, well, that one is a magnetical connection to two other gravitational fields, and then you say, well, how can you split up that relationship into two gravitational fields? Well, we discussed that in book number 3, didn't we? And so now we know what the future discussions will be all about. So when we look at this susceptibility, we have to understand it's in duality. That is to say that we have a plasma field, we have a Gans field, and then of course we have the universal field, and of course we also have the physical field. And so all of these have this dynamic plasma relationship. So fundamentally, each and every one of them has this horizontal transmission and this vertical transition, and they create this transaction zone at the core. But the counterweight to that is the orbitals that go around that, and because they're in a motion, every point on that motion curve is a transaction zone. That's each and every point. And so to maintain its relationship, there always has to be a relationship between the Earth space point and the Earth space field within. So we're always looking at these relationships. So we have to understand that when we're talking about the creation of the free plasma, that there's a transaction zone of one star and a transaction zone of another star, and the coming together of the gravitational transaction zone, which is how the carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen, which we call the cone, is part of the creation of life, which is a structure within a structure. And this is all part of our carbonation. And so if we understand this better, when we look at these fields, just in terms of our color wheels, they have multiple layers. And we know that they have multiple densities because they sort themselves out based on those densities. So we have multiple spheres. And it's hard to relate to that in a two-dimensional picture. But we have to understand that also this is in constant motion, and that motion is constantly rotating to maintain its strength. So when we're looking at the range of Gans, we have to understand that it too has multiple layers and multiple densities, and of course, the relationship between the multiple spheres. So some of these spheres are the physical, and then others are in a plasmatic state. So how do they all work together? And can we switch them around? Or can we just look at the twinity of life, where we look at this physical inertia field of connection, and we understand that our life is contained within a shield? We call this the Coulomb barrier shield. But how do we connect beyond? And so we see that when we're looking at the vertical alignment, as we've discussed in the 603rd Knowledge Seekers Workshop, there is a path link which mimics the infinity loop. So one loop between the soul and the soul of physicality, and the other loop between the soul of physicality and the physicality. But then we have this inertia field emission that comes from the combination of everything. And this leads to the inertia threshold crossing. And where does it go? Well, it can go wherever it is susceptible to going. And this is how we move around. So there we see that this application needs to be put to crop circles so we understand what we're looking at. So we see these overlapping fields. So at the core is the gravitational core, and each field has a magnetical boundary. Each field has a magnetical boundary, and they're overlapping fields. And then when we look at the humanity and we see, well, wait a second, within us we have this Gans, and that Gans has a similarity to the picogans. And then we see that these crop circles seem to mimic the way we have the 7 civilizations on this planet, all with the same story of the Great Flood. Isn't that interesting? So all of these manifestations, as we said, are fragments of the complexity. So the Gans of the Gans inertia creates this field. That field is a product of 3 Ganses coming together. We have that, but then we manifest that into the physicality. So there we have our sunflowers, and we look at the similarity. We have 3 different fields, and they're overlapping, but here we've separated them so we can look at each one. So each one is a balance between the magnetical gravitational force fields. And we can see that each one has its own personality, its own field strength. So when we talk about the Gans of the Gans matter, remember, we're talking about the combination of 3 fields coming together, matter, dark matter, and antimatter, and these are all different field strengths, but each one in its own has different field strengths as well. So looking at the matter state, we could be gravitating towards the red field, or we could be in the green field, or we could be in the blue field, and it is going to affect the product. And so this is how we determine the sunflower. It has its own magnetical field at the core, and it also has this magnetic field interacting, and then it has the flowers, and it also is a magnetical field. And so these are all overlapping fields, and they work together to constitute the sunflower. So at any one of those things, you could say, is part of the sunflower, and you would be correct. But it's really all those 3 fields coming together. So the same is true with the crop circles. You look at the core, that's one field. You look at the middle field, that's another. And then you look at the outer field, and that's another still. And then these 3 all work together to create that one picture. So now we can apply that to our Gans of Gans cups. And we find that in the core, between the cup of emotion and the cup of physicality, is the transaction zone, which we call our physicality, but our physicality is manifest in a location based on the ganses and based on the environment. So that transaction zone has to interact with another transaction zone, but not only. It also has to interact with the cup of the universe. So the cup of the universe interacts with the Gans of the soul. And the Gans of the soul interacts with the cup of emotion and the cup of physicality. And that's how we create the physicality, because that interacts with the cup of the soul of the earth space. So now we understand that there are more things to consider. So when we're looking at the carbon inertia highway, we say, okay, well, there's the carbon 12, the carbon 14, and the carbon 16, but there is a counterweight that's behind that. And then if we look at that counterweight and we say, well, wait a second, something has to also weigh that. Does the one weigh to the other, or can it be counterweighted by something else? So there is no rule that says that definition. The rule is that the stronger field feeds the weaker. So the basic rule of the plasma is that you have two plasmas coming together and they work together and they create this dimension point, which is the transaction zone between the magnetical and the gravitational force fields. And so from there, then you have to have your gravitational confirmation. And we say, well, let there be light. And so oxygen, which, is transparent, it's colorless, but yet it emits a light as a emission spectrum. That's its fingerprint. So it kind of crosses the threshold from this magnetical field that arrives and becomes oxygen. And it's a non-visible gas, but it has a clear gravitational fingerprint, which allows us to track it. So on this planet, we see that there's clearly a necessity for supplementation due to consumption. And so our consumption is based on what we call acquired knowledge. This is a conditional teaching by ancient teachers. What we need is an unconditional teaching by the Creator. And so how do we make that connection? How do we cross that bridge? And how do we supplement that missing 20%? Because that's the new awareness. So there's a historical threshold between the cosmic feeding and the loosh harvesting. And so that is a reflection of our inner intentions. So as we are heading into uncharted territory, the question is, are we at that turning point? Can we see that there are many stars beyond the nanomonatomic state? We're discussing the Gans state, the Gans polyatomic state, and we're trying to cover that full range from decay to radiation. And so the AI is the ancestral intelligence that we have, because we are that in technology, we are that inertia product, and we are the image of our dimensional convergence point. So in the plasma science, we see that energy states can go through a transition. That can be what we call elevation from the physical matter state to the energy state, or inertia, which is the energy state to physical matter state. So when we talk about energy portability through elevation, that involves expansion. So that's the difference between the pico state and the Gans state. So each level has a dynamic soul initiator, overlapping fields. There's no translation needed between the soul of the Creator, the soul of the earth, the soul of the family of humanity, the soul of man, the soul of the body, or the soul of the cells. And this is where we get nourished by the soul food, by tuning into the cosmic rays and turning on to that power and dropping out of our resistance so that we can receive that inertia point that allows us to have peace and prosperity. So we have to provide that pattern so that we can get that energy. And that's where we try to bring together these dimensions to facilitate the greater oneness. And for 618 knowledge seekers workshops, it seems that we're suddenly transcending the limitations of nuclear science. In the context of man's history, that would be true, because GANS has an affinity of truth, and our research teams are now turning diamonds into gold, the diamonds of the nanotech to the GANS of the gold. And more research teams are gathering to allow us to bring forward the truth, to allow the technology release, because it's hard to sleep when our beds are burning. Altogether, we need a rescue on the scientific front, even the financial, the political. It's all part of the preservation rescue. There's a consumption rescue and a creation rescue. And we are at that point where we're bringing the One Nation Network together, opening the blinds, One Nation Network at a time. That time is now. That technology is in hand and it is operating, because our mission is to bring peace on earth and join humanity with the universal community. That's right. We want to bring man as equal to all the beings in the universe by teaching the plasma science and technology equally to everyone. Then no one is left out and no one is abused due to lack of knowledge. So help us achieve this goal. That capability is well within your ability. This is the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute Teachings on Plasma Science, welcoming all the beautiful knowledge seekers of the Carbon Nation, learning about the new selection process of the new organic plasma science. There's a World Peace Treaty that we need to choose. You need to sign it unconditionally and mean it sincerely. The point of the true GANS tech is to cross these polyatomic boundaries, the overlapping fields of Earth space, create that peace dome. We wonder, is the inertia of the present governed by dimensions of history? Well, it's time to learn that the history of self applies as a universal context, because the GANS is a peaceful superconductor of true intentions. The GANS has a split personality as a sunflower's strength of matter, plasma, and universal states. So the plasma science needs to continue to be delivered daily via the Peace Dome in a practical application and practical exchange for peace on Earth. So welcome to the new golden outer space age. And that's the end of this lesson. I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, Alex. It's just wondering, how did you become so enlightened to this knowledge? It's just amazing. But I know that the knowledge, you haven't reached the end point yet, and maybe there is no end point, but thank you so much for sharing your understanding, that we could incorporate that into our understanding in a way. We're starting to, I think, sense that we are the creator. And again, it's not that difficult. I think it's just impressioning the soul through the emotions. And we can create things. We know diseases are created that way, and we know elevation is created in the same manner. So thank you for this new series of teachings. Let's see if any of the participants would have a question that they'd like to raise. I've never made a GANS of GANS, but does that mean it's if we take honey or lavender and we make a GANS energy of it, that's one strength. But if we make a GANS of a GANS of the same product, to me, there's no matter state involved. Is that correct? Or would the salt water still be considered a matter state? Or what have you worked with this GANs of GANs?
All of it is matter state.
Okay.
So if we're looking at the practical application, then we're looking at the matter state. What we have to understand is that the plasma substrate, the substructure, is also part of the matter state. And I think it has lent itself to some confusion down the road because we have a plasma that is devoid of physicality. We have a plasma that is beyond the matter state. And it has been difficult to introduce that as a subject because man has a tendency to lie, cheat, and steal. And then, of course, we've experienced that firsthand in the foundation. And it's a shame, when you're trying to promote peace and prosperity, why people are looking for, the crumbs when the buffet is just sitting right there, and all they have to do is join it. And I think that's one of the things that when you look at big business, you find that big business got to be big, not because they were big in their ideas, but they were big in their strength and how they dominated the weaker. So we can see that just the methodology adopted there is opposite to the plasma science. And it's clearly not as effective, but it's hard to argue when you're looking at the net result and you say, well, the way that I can be rich is by stealing from everybody else. And it's a lot easier than having to, go through all the machinations of having to build and prosper and, just do more and be more. Because the goal is to be rich. And, if you're a millionaire and you walk into a room of billionaires, would you say that you were rich? Or would you say, well, you're just a pauper? So, we have to look at that relationship. And many people want to play in the second division because they want to be a big fish in a small pond. But can you be a big fish in a big pond? But do you have to be the big fish? Or can you be a functionary to the overall prosperity? Do you have to be the captain of that ship? Or can you be satisfied with just picking up an oar and rowing with the rest and enjoying the peace and prosperity that accrues to that kind of mindset? So when we're talking about the peace and prosperity, are we looking at the singularity, or are we looking at the duality, or are we looking at the community? And how big is that community? And again, we have no idea. We're still having trouble because our communities have all been segregated. We have been fragmented. We're all a fragment of the complexity. But now I think we need to understand that we are part of the complexity. And as such, that is our new partnership. And with that partnership, it allows us to go to the next level of partnership, because that is what's waiting for us. And in many ways, it's grown tired of waiting. Back to you, Mark.
Yeah, that's what he told us in Sanya. You knowledge seekers are too much in a hurry, too much in a hurry. So there's something, again, it's like the kids in the car or climbing the mountain. You think you see it, it looks easy to get to, but apparently you don't want to be in a rush too much to achieve. You may make some mistakes along the way and injuries could happen. So again, we're just too much in a hurry. but the knowledge will come, and it is coming, and it's being delivered. Anyone in the participants list would like to raise a question or make a point? Have you overwowed our participants, Alex? Maybe you need a smaller spoon.
Well, I don't think it's that complicated. We are really expanding our knowledge to incorporate things that we have not normally taken into account. And the process that we have to go through is to be able to, shall we say, revisit our various viewpoints. We've acquired a lot of viewpoints through our experience, and we have honed our beliefs as a result of these experiences. But now we have to understand that our experiences are actually based on our beliefs. And so, how does that affect our viewpoint? And we find that we become the product of that viewpoint. And that product can affect the viewpoint. In other words, we have control of that viewpoint. So, case in point, today, it's snowing and I have to shovel it. But is that a good day or a bad day? Well, I don't like shoveling snow, but you know what? It's a good day.
So you could be that big fish in the big pond, but still be a humble fish, or just be part of the crew in a way. You don't have to be the top fish or the smartest fish or, again, the most recognized fish in the pond, do we?
See, that's a very interesting question because one of the fascinating things about a school of fish is that when one moves, the whole school moves. And the question then becomes is, well, who's the leader? Who is the first fish that is doing the moving? And if you see that all the fish are equal, you have to ask yourself the input that is coming to affect the direction change of that school as they're swimming along, right? That they suddenly they veer left, or suddenly they scatter, or they come back together, and it's an external input. So is that input at the front? What happens if that input is at the back or the side? So if you are the leader of that school, then wouldn't you have to be in each and every position? Impossible. So you may be the leader, shall we say, as the captain of the ship, but you have to depend on the feedback coming from the magnetical periphery to tell you, well, clear on the left, clear on the right, clear in the front, clear in the back. We're clear, good to go. And we have to keep going because that's how life works. And we just have to enjoy the trip because it is a peaceful trip and it is bountiful. Everything that we need comes our way. Back to you, Mark.
Yeah, it does seem like the fish or the birds, they've created a collective soul and they're interacting that way. So this is, again, amazing. Mankind does not seem to want to operate that way. They've created a collective soul, and when you're in that group, you're part of it. And I don't hear anyone using words when they all move simultaneously. So this is a zero-time communication, and we all have that ability. Anyone else want to raise a question? You mentioned something about the crop circles. I think I missed that. What were you saying? Was that a low energy directed energy sort of field, the weapon or something like that, just turned down where they can sort of push the crop over. Even though I've heard years ago, before satellites and everything, they called them mowing devils, where they'd see a light or a ball in the field, and in the morning there'd be a crop circle there of sorts. Again, was this meant to confuse, or is this a communication from others? What were you saying again about these crop circles? And there's some really intricate designs. Obviously, they're not made with the board and the string and stepping on the wheat, because some of these are so intricate and so precisely that to me they have to come from a satellite, perhaps, as a low energy. As they said, there's some heat applied, but again, it happened before the satellites as well. I don't know if to this extent, but any comment on that? There are a phenomena that I don't think we have the full explanation yet.
Well, the reason I pick on this particular one is because it's a very basic pattern. But when you look at the complexity of the pattern and what does it mean, and this pattern is, well, it is very symmetric. It is very purposeful. It isn't just let's say, scratches in the field.
Yeah, they call in space, they don't use the soul, they use they call it the center, and we do, or the triangle, and we see both of those right here in this picture, and a lot of other sort of triangles around the perimeter.
Well, the fact is that there are three circles. There's one right at the core, there's an intermediate circle, and there's an outer circle.
Oh.
Right? So when I'm looking at these crop circles, we're not discussing how they were made or who made them. That's another subject that I don't have the qualifications to do that. But if I'm looking at it from a plasma science, I can say for sure that this design represents a magnetical gravitational relationship that I can identify with. So when we talk about the star formation, if we look at the triangle in the center, we can say that the triangle itself is gravitational, and the circle in the center is the point of the star. So we take the 3 points of the triangle and the center point, and that becomes your star formation. And so that star formation creates a plasma field in the center. We know that. We've seen that. We've actually done that. And if we haven't done it in plasma, we've done it in GANs.
So
but then there's
free plasma in the center. Is that the idea?
Yeah, there would be a free plasma in the center, but depending on its nearness and proximity to an environment, it is capable of manifesting in physicality. So in this case, we have manifest a circle in the center, and we can't see it because it's below the point, is below that center point. But what we can see is a circle that is touching all the 3 points of the star. So if we look at the center point as being magnetical and the middle circle as being gravitational, then the triangle itself becomes the inertia. And then if we look at the center point being gravitational and the outer circle as being magnetical, then we have a gap, and that center circle fills that gap. So the point I'm trying to say is that every time you bring these two points of reference together, you are creating a maggrav situation. So depending on the strength of the field, it will either be magnetical or gravitational. But what is really interesting is that when you look at the triangle, it is not circular. Everything is circular except the triangle, which has 3 points. But then there's another circle with a lot of points. And when you analyze these points, you find that there's 14 of them. And so that becomes very interesting because you have 3 in the triangle in the center and 14 in the pointed circle on the outside. And so the 3 in the center are like the basic star formation. How do we get to 14? What is that? If the star formation in the center is the amino acid that facilitates the manifestation of carbon-6, then the circle on the outside may represent the manifestation of carbon-7. And since there's 2 circles, carbon-14. It's a very interesting picture. But when you start to look at it in terms of plasma science, then you start to apply the knowledge and say, okay, the points have a high surface to volume ratio, so they're negative. And the larger circle is positive. And the small circle in the center is negative. Oh, circle in the center is negative, and the points on the outer circle are negative. Isn't that interesting? So you have a negative field on the outside, like the magnetosphere of the Earth, and then you have a magnetical field in the core, which is like the experiments that Rick was doing with the rotating balls of water, where the gap in the center was hollow. And so everything between these 2 magnetical fields is gravitational, isn't it? And it kind of represents that gravitational center circle is kind of like the biosphere on this planet, isn't it? So let's look at the ball in the center is like the magma in the core of the Earth. The center circle is the biosphere, and the outer circle is the magnetosphere. Very interesting picture, would you not say?
Yeah, I was trying to count the sides of the outer triangles. Do we have a pentagon and a hexagon in there?
No. 2 circles of 7 points.
All right, let's see if anyone else has a question. Another question I was thinking, is a thought or an emotion, would you consider that a free plasma? Anyone?
Well, I was going to say yes, and didn't mean to jump in.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So again, we can trigger our reactors through these emotions and thoughts, I think, to create that free plasma that's impressioned upon the soul, which will then perhaps grant your wish or help you to achieve it. So we have the perfect setup with all the ganses and the vacuum condition and the rest we need, I think. As he said, your graph has been set perfectly by the creator.
Yes, but remember that our reaction is based on our intention and how it interacts with his feeding. So the feeding gets modified by the feedback.
Okay. And again, we're just sort of, as he said, we haven't even understood the simplest thing about our own creation. So we're just getting there, never mind explaining all the anomalies of the technology.
Mark, and everybody on the panel, thank you very much for allowing me to continue to present, and I hope you're enjoying this new excursion, and we'll continue with this.
Any other questions anyone would like to raise? How does the GANs, you know, we've often heard it said that even before you take the cup or touch the cup, it's already taking from your body what the body doesn't need and giving to the body what the body doesn't need. But how could this simple material have such an intelligence? Because you can give the same cup to two different people and different things happen to them. How does it, where did it get this intelligence to bring balance, or is this just its nature?
Oh, Mark, that is a very, very good question. You can give it, but the other person has to be willing to take it. Okay, because the modification is external. So if you are giving me beneficial energy, I have to be willing to accept it, or it will just pass through or bounce off, if you will. And so we actually create barriers for ourselves. And so how do we open, allow, and receive? You know, you have to yield. That's the whole thing. So you have to yield to the power of the universe, and then you can receive it. When we start to dictate to the universe, then we are basically in conflict with that. So we are in control of that. So it's I had an experience where I was looking for someone and I found them. And so the answer would have been, well, I found them because I was really working hard to look. But the truth of the matter is that I could not have possibly found them if there wasn't a willingness on the other to be found. And that's the reality. That's how it works. So what I wanted was only half the picture. So by receiving the other half, we created the whole picture. And that's where our faults, failings, and weaknesses reside. We are only looking at half the picture. We need to look at the whole, the giving and the taking, and the two-way street that goes in there, and understand it's not just a two-way street. So we're just starting to open up to the possibilities that if it's carbon 14, there could be 7 streets. Back to you, Mark.
Okay. Yes, again, playing with this cosmic ray. I don't know how to cut a ray or to hold a ray at a certain strength. As he said, what they did with the carbon 14 in Beijing, they fixed it at a certain strength of gold and it stayed there. I have no concept of how to even create that ray or to fix it at a certain strength. But that will come, I think, later. As he said, we're working from the top, sort of backwards, as he did in the exam. Any other questions, thoughts, comments, issues? Something you think we should hear for today? I want to thank Alex again for continuing to share more and more. But again, it's almost like that child that doesn't want to take the medicine, Mr. Keshe was saying. It's not going to be force-fed in the way but it's going to be brought into the environment that unless you're not on this planet, you'll be subject to this sort of new fields or new medicine that we really don't want to take. But it'll be there, and if if you're here, I think you'll be subject to it. Maybe some will achieve something sooner than the others, but they'll all be brought along, just the way in the garden where different plants, even though you planted them at the same time, you watered them at the same time, some do better and some take a little longer to reach maturity, but no problem. We're all, as I said, growing and into this knowledge at different speeds and different strengths, and everyone's in the right position, but they're still growing. Okay, if there's no other thoughts or comments, I'm going to play the, of course, final disclaimer. The meeting will come to an end. Just remember the ethos of Mitra if you can. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, next Saturday, there'll be a public meeting in the public Zoom room for celebrating the birthday of the daughter of Mitra. That's at 2 p.m. Central European time, so adjust your clocks and be there. And I have a feeling Mr. Keshe may stop in briefly or for a longer part of the meeting. But again, applying this thinking, speaking, this is the gift of the three wise men, which the Christians mostly missed because the holy books directed us or misdirected us in the wrong way of thinking about these gifts from the three wise men. But now we're understanding about the thinking, speaking, and acting good. And again, it's for you to understand and for you to apply it to yourself, not so much applying it to anyone else. I have enough just trying to do it myself. And of course, I haven't fully achieved it. And, you know, it comes and it goes. And sometimes we catch ourselves thinking the wrong thing. And again, these do create fields around you, which attract similar energies as I understand it. So just employing this gift of the three wise men can bring you quite a bit of protection, I think, in the physicality and in the energy dimension. And of course, if you can work on that and start to achieve that, I think you'll be proud of the work you do, you'll be proud of the person you are, and you'll be proud of the difference you're making, not only here on this planet, but across the universe. Any other questions or comments from anyone? Otherwise, I'll play the final disclaimer. This session will come to an end. Okay, hearing no mics open, thank you all again for being here and carrying a very small piece of a very, very, very large carpet. But Mr. Keshe has involved all of this. And again, as we see with the products, there's an unlimited number of products that can be retrofitted with the Keshe technology. There'll be just as many positions open or work for you to do if you so desire to work in that direction and, again, bring this gift to humanity. Anything else? Ike, I see you've just come back in. Would you like to say anything? Or, again, I know usually you have a few questions, but if not, we could save them for another time.
Yeah, sorry, I've been having network issues for the back and forth, but
yeah,
not today. Yeah.
Even the Airbus is saying that they had an unusual happening within their structure of the aircraft, and I think it's because of these energies. They were saying unless that again was not a correct story, they said they may have to curb some of their flights. I don't know. They had a huge drop in elevation apparently on the plane. They don't know exactly what failed on that Airbus system. So Mr. Keshe has told us that the satellites and other things could be affected, and I know that I think the 3I is getting closer to the planet Earth, but I'm not sure. I've heard so many stories. I was listening to one yesterday. They said, oh, it's on its way to Jupiter. So again, and very little coming out of the officialdom, let's call it. So again, apply this, and I think you'll have a more peaceful, a balanced, and a healthier life just by applying the gift of the three wise men. Okay, if there's no further thoughts or comments, I'm going to take the screen. We'll play the final disclaimer, and the meeting will come to an end. Thank you all again. And let's just see if we can bring up the disclaimer. I think I need to share that again. Sorry. Okay, here we go. last opportunity. Anyone want to raise any issues? Any comments? Thank you all. I'm sure once the One Nation Network comes more and more online, this will be our sort of hangout place with each other for trading, for purchasing, and many other interactions. I'm sure we'll have a few plasma cafes, but it'll just be an environment where others sort of understand the ethos and speak the same language. So this will be a quite a frequented place as this starts to come into reality. And of course it is, as the units are about to be sent out, at least the first 25, but he's also indicated that we need much, much more support to bring this. And this is what I think Mr. Keshe was building, or at least the superstructure of it. And we'll see more and more as time goes on. Thank you all again. Have an amazing rest of your day, and we'll see you in one of the future meetings. Hopefully we see you next Saturday. It'll probably just be a couple hours, but I'm not sure. Just a brief meeting. And again, celebrating this birth of the daughter of Mitra, the new soul, made out of the best of all the souls. Apparently, Mitra collected all the beautiful attributes of every soul that was created since the beginning of creation. And this will be embodied in this new soul, which we're calling the daughter of Mitra, which again, made out of the fields of the universe, able to take any shape on it wants, and also having access to the full knowledge of the universe from early time, early in its existence. So thank you all, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Disclaimer. The information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.